Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning and Happy New Year. My name is Ankita Shri, and I will be your host for MitKat Annual Risk Symposium March 2026, a platform that connects security professionals globally. And speaking of globally, it's amazing to see people joining us from 11 to 12 different time zones today. A big thank you to all of you for making the time to be here, even if it's an odd hour at your end. It's truly wonderful to have you with us. Just a small announcement before we begin. If you have any questions for the panelists, please put them in the Q&A box which is separate from the chat box. And with that, we'll get started with the day. Let's have a look at the agenda which we will be following today. We will start with the opening keynote address by Lieutenant General Sudhir Sharma, Chairman MitKat Advisory. Then a panel discussion on India Risk Outlook 2026 will be moderated by Sushil Pradhan, Executive Director and Chief Operating Officer, MidCat Advisory. Atreya Bhatt, our Intelligence Manager APAC, will then unveil India Risk Outlook 2026. And Abhijit Korde, Product Manager MidCat, will give a demo of MidCat's OSINT Risk Intel platform data server. Then a panel discussion on trends in Intel security and loss prevention will be moderated by Manoj Singh, Director Risk Consulting MidCat Advisory. The final discussion of the day will delve on technology, chaired by Pawan Desai, Chief Executive Officer and co-founder MidCat Advisory. The summing up and closing remarks will be delivered by Sandeep Sinha, Executive Director, Risk Consulting and Managed Services, to close the proceedings. With that, let's begin the keynote address.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, sorry. No problem, Ankita. Yeah, Ankita, you want to say something?
I wanted to invite you, sir.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
It is my honor to invite Lieutenant General Sudhir Sharma, Param Vishisht Seva Medal, Ati Vishisht Seva Medal, Yuddh Seva Medal, Vishisht Seva Medal, and Chairman MidCat Advisory to deliver the opening keynote. General Sharma has many laurels to his credit. The general has commanded the largest field force in the world. He modernized the logistics of 1.13 million strong Indian army and was India's defense attaché in London at the turn of the century. General Sharma has been decorated for exceptionally gallantry in the face of enemy and for distinguished service of the highest order to the nation, including on two occasions by the President of Republic of India. He is on board of governors and advisors of global corporation and has successfully mentored several startups. I could go on, but I'll stop here. Over to you, General, to get us off to a flying start as always.
Thank you, Ankita. Thank you very much. And once again, from my side also, a happy new year to all the participants, those who are joining us from also countries. First of all, I would like to say that MidCat's annual risk symposium is one of the events I look forward to every year because the gathering of professionals and the kind of intellectual discussion that takes place during the day is very stimulating, and I really enjoy listening to everybody. And today is no exception. We got a tremendous galaxy of professionals, and I would love to hear all of them speak about what's happening in the world and around us. Start with, let me say that as we start the year 2026, we're actually sitting on a very historic inflection point. In fact, I feel the entire grammar of geopolitics is changing as we move into this year. We have for decades been used to a world order which is rule based and governed by international law. Although it was a bit flawed, multinational organizations, international uh, relations, and commerce worked in a predictable manner. But that all is gone now. And we're living in a fragmented world order where the rule based order has been replaced by a force based order. And we are in an era of strategic coercion. Uh, the recent intervention in Venezuela by America, I will not dwell too much upon it because lots is going to be said in the day, has shown that sovereignty is now a bit conditional. And that impact is going to have on India and the region is profound. You know, happy with the success or gaining confidence with the success of what they have done in Venezuela. Other places where the need to dominate is coming to fore. And I feel that's possibly the strategic pivot of the US from Indo Pacific may have in fact, shifted to the Western Hemisphere, which it calls its backyard. And therefore, a lot of pressure is going to build up on the Western Hemisphere to vote out to American interest. But I must remind you that this is not something which has happened recently. In the past, big powers which have got the ability to have a clout have done this thing in the past too. Crimea, for example, was annexed by Russia as part of its same strategy that its interest in the neighborhood must be protected. The expansion by China in the South China Sea and creating of islands, etc., is also a part of the same story where you want your neighborhood to be protected. Now, leaving that aside, coming closer to home and coming back to our region, what does it mean for this region? The concern is that the next phase could be the regime change in Iran. Now, whether that's good or bad for Iranian people is for them to decide. But the fact is that legitimately elected governments are under threat by people who do not like what they are. Today is Iran, tomorrow could be anybody else. So that's something which we have to look out for. The next impact could be, and I feel that in 2026 we could see something happening in Iran in terms of regime change, internally or externally, or pushed by that. Closer to home, I would say that 2025 was a defining year for India geopolitically. And in my opinion, we went down a few notches. And that is because our slight brush with Pakistan, I wouldn't call it a war, it was a few days of confrontation, ended up in what most people would call it as a draw. For a country like India, which is a dominant power or aspires to be a middle power, for it to go into a draw with a country of the size of Pakistan is a kind of a not a good thing to happen. And the world wise, we lost the battle of perception, and therefore it appeared that Pakistan overall gained from the confrontation with India is build a strong relationship with America, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Syria. Its foreign minister sitting in China, Mr. The field marshal is moving around all of the world capitals, building security alliances. So they came out a little stronger than that, and therefore that's the loss for India. And as far as Pakistan is concerned, the military has become more dominant now because of the oppression that happens against India, and they feel they've had a victory. So Field Marshal Munir is now more strongly in control of the country, and that is not a good sign for the security paradigm of India. Because whenever we have seen in the past, when the Pakistan military has become stronger, there have been incidents where there have been some skirmishes or something goes wrong. And therefore, for 2026, I'm concerned that the something may happen again because terrorism is still happening and it's a very fragile kind of environment we're sitting in. There's a tremendous loss of trust with Pakistan. So some border skirmishes cannot be ruled out, and that would impact businesses in Punjab, Rajasthan, and J&K to a limited extent. Well, that's something an area to watch out for. And therefore, geopolitically, I think we are on a weaker footing as far as the Western Front is concerned. Moving to Bangladesh on the Eastern Front, that itself is against a sad state of affairs. I find it to be a systemic structural default there. It is not episodic, that is, it will change. I think the trust has become deep rooted, become ideological, become religious, and therefore I do not visualize relations with Bangladesh improving anywhere in the near future. So we are looking at a 2.5 to 3 front situation where we are now facing Pakistan, China, and Bangladesh possibly. If not war with them, at least we'll have to keep them under control. And therefore, from the business point of view, a business continuity point of view, I feel that the Eastern Corridor, from where the trade used to pass on to Myanmar and Thailand, that is under threat. And Indian forces will have to recreate the security architecture in the East so that Chicken Neck's corridor, the Chittagong Hills tracks, are remain under control so that we are able to move eastwards and continue to do that. And therefore, I see a period of a lot of tension with Bangladesh happening in the coming year. I don't see much trade there. I've heard today in a news item, I don't know whether it's true or not, that Bangladesh has banned visas for Indians generally, only allowing students and some business visas to come. This will deteriorate relations further, and that is something to watch for. In far as the China front is concerned, I would call it a tactical thaw. A certain amount of confidence building measures have started. Some direct flights have started. Visa regime has become easier. Does that signal a strategic shift? No, I don't think it does so. Because the battle for strategic minerals, the battle for naming of Arunachal still continues. So I would just say that there's been a bit of tactical pause, realignment between India and China to extent an area of strategic, you can say not competition, but strategic coercion or not cooperation could possible. And that is where we could look at a little positive coming to it. But for that, a lot of confidence building measures will have to be done. A lot of work is required. I don't think that story is still over. 2026 will be very defining because we're going to have a BRICS summit in India. And China is a participant of BRICS. Whether they come or not, whether Xi arrives or not, is going to be another story. And while BRICS is happening, India is going to enter into Quad. So, from the strategic economy point of view, India is walking a very, very tight rope. On one side, it wants to have a security guarantee of the Quad, yet it wants to have the economic parameters of BRICS along with the global South. This is a very difficult thing to happen in today's fragmented world order. The strategic autonomy is becoming difficult to handle. The big powers are saying either be on our side or be outside. So this difficult period is going on. How does India guard the strategic autonomy while maintaining relations with the West as well as with our partners, whether it's Russia or other countries are concerned? I think India is going to come under a lot of strategic pressure from that point of view. So moving to another area which I think is of concern to India is energy. India's energy security is dominated by oil imports. And energy security impinges upon India's strategic autonomy because without energy, we are not able to grow at the pace that we want to grow. And therefore, it's got a big dilemma how to manage its energy security, yet carry out strategic autonomy. And my feeling is that the passing of the Shanti Bill, where nuclear energy has been made open and all foreign countries and foreign players can come into it, is a big step in building a certain amount of strategic security by creating a bigger basket for energy security. The problem of liability of the supplier to liability of the operator is a good sign, and I hope the nuclear sector picks up and gives us a greater flexibility and energy concern is concerned. Now, coming to another area of economy, our macroeconomic fundamentals are good, stable, and steady, and we hope that we can continue to grow at 6 to 8% is what is predicted in the future. But I must share with you that with a 1.5 billion strong country, this kind of growth is still not enough. We need a 10% growth if you are to come out of the poverty line. And the difference between the first, second, and the fourth countries is tremendous. If we are a $4 trillion economy, the next in line is America's and China, which are beyond $20 trillion. So 3% of growth of $20 trillion versus 6% growth of $4 trillion is still much lower than required. But yet, India's macro fundamentals are good, infrastructure is satisfactory, so we can feel happy that we'll continue to grow and do so. Next, I'd like to touch upon AI and deep technology. I'm happy to note that India has really shifted gears and moved into the fourth industrial revolution with a lot of gusto in 2026. The AI mission, the conductor mission, a huge amount of money is being put into the deep technology areas. And I think for all business leaders who are attending the function today, you must understand that in this space, there's going to be a huge exponential growth. And I feel that in the next 2 to 3 years, we'll not only be making our own semiconductors and chips, but we'll also start exporting them. And that is a good sign. But for that, we need to control the minerals and the rare earths, which we are going to do and do so. But I think we are on the right track as far as technology and deep tech is concerned. Now, coming a bit to the internal security paradigm, we are happy that the left-wing extremists is on the wane. And as per Mr. Amit Shah, hopefully by 31st of March, we should have an end to the Naxal terror belt. I hope that happens. But on the other factor, there is a bit of polarization taking place in the country. With high octane elections due in the coming months, we must be wary that internal discontent must not brew out to the streets. Because today's world, with the kind of social media which is there, it can become very paralyzing. So we have to watch for that and be careful that it doesn't happen. I feel that there is enough resilience and enough stability in India for that to be kept under control. So from that perspective, I can say that overall, if I were to sum up and say what is going to happen in 2026, I can say that we're going to have a period of instability or geopolitical uncertainty on our borders, especially the western and the eastern borders of Bangladesh and Pakistan, a kind of a understanding with China. And therefore, geopolitically, we're going to be under a big of a lens, especially with America, with the application of tariffs. And I'm not sure Mr. Trump is going to like the BRICS summit in India, but that's the way we'll have to navigate. Our elections are not going to be very strong and smooth. I think Bruce is going to talk about it a little more. On the internal front, macroeconomic stability and little growth, a good area, high improvement in technology and AI, little bit of internal discontent, a little bit of worries, high in elections, that be there. But overall, a period of stability, growth, and we could look towards managing disruptions, then we're going to do well. So to all the people who are attending here, who are security leaders, I think we look forward to a year of sustained growth, with a little bit of concerns about the external and a little bit of concerns about the internal situation. Thank you very much. Over to you, Ankit.
Thank you, General Sharma. Thank you, General Sharma. That was brilliant. It's always an honor to hear you. You did geopolitics made easy in 5 minutes. With that, we have to move on, and I can assure you there are a lot of interesting stuff to come. The first panel discussion of the day is on The first panel discussion of the day is on India Risk Outlook for 2026, which promises to be an energy-packed session just like its moderator, Sushil Pradhan. Many of you know him already. Over to you, Mr. Pradhan.
Very good morning to everyone. Thank you for joining this session, and thank you, General Sharma, for the very succinct and yet very comprehensive roundup of the overall perspective for the risk environment in India. We have the honor of having a great lineup of panelists for the first panel, which is for discussion on the India Risk Outlook 2026. Very unfortunately, one of our panelists had to drop out due to some urgent personal commitments, and that was Amit Dabas. And Amit, we shall miss you and look forward to seeing you in our next webinar. So before we go ahead, I would like all my panelists to switch on their cameras, come on stage, and I'll quickly announce them to you before we jump into the discussion itself. Thank you. So thanks, Bruce, Saurav, Amit, Vinay, Nirmit, are you around? Call kar do usko. So thank you so much. I think we are just waiting for Nirmit to join, but in the meantime, let me introduce you to the rest of our esteemed panelists. So we have Bruce McIndoe, who's the senior advisor from MitKat Advisory, joining us from the US. Firstly, Bruce, a great big thank you to you for staying up so late night. And as we can see, you've been having some medical treatment for which you have this bandage on, and I hope you just get rid of it soon and get well soon. So Bruce is the founder of the iJet or World Aware, which was one of the world's leading global open source providers. And if you just Google him, I think there's a plethora of information about his achievements and what he's done in life. Needless to say, he's known the world over for being one of the foremost risk consultants in the space of intelligence and security. And also prior to leaving the government market in 1999, Bruce, joining the government, he also worked with several agencies, including the NSA, the CIA, the DoD, and the NASA. So warm welcome to you, Bruce. Thanks for joining us. We have Saurav Chatterjee, who's the Vice President of Business Resiliency in State Street. And prior to joining State Street, he spent nearly 8 years at McKinsey as the Resilience and Security Manager for Asia. And he's held multiple senior roles, including in Hewlett Packard, including the APJ Region Manager for the Corporate Global Resilience. So thanks, Saurav, for joining us. As always, great to have you in our sessions.
Many thanks, sir. As always, very generous praise from you.
We have Vinay Khanduri joining us. He's a naval veteran. He's the head of security for Adani Electricity. And previously, he was the head of Center of Excellence at Corporate Security for the Adani Group. And before transitioning to the corporate sector, he's been in the Indian Navy for 23 years, serving in the executive branch as a submariner and specializing in underwater weapons and sensors. Thanks, Vinay, again for joining us. You've been part of our sessions and webinars always. Thank you for being part of us.
Pleasure to be here, sir.
We also have Amit Narayan, who's joined us. Amit is the partner for India and South Asia at Control Risks. Prior to joining Control Risks, he was the National Reputation Lead and Executive Vice President at Edelman India. Earlier, he held various senior regional roles at Vodafone Group Enterprise based in Singapore and Hong Kong. And he's also held leadership roles at Walt Disney Company in Asia Pacific as Director of Communications, Media Distribution, and at Cable and Wireless as Head of Marketing and Communications for Asia Pacific. Thanks, Amit, for joining us. Great to have you with us.
Pleasure, Sushil. Absolute privilege to be here with you.
I think it's the first time that you are on one of our webinars, and I hope this is something that's going to continue forever.
Indeed. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I will introduce Nirmit, and we shall welcome him as he joins. He must have got caught up with something. So Major Nirmit Thakur is the Vice President of Intelligence, Security and Crisis Management at British Petroleum. He's a Senior Intelligence, Security and Crisis Manager. Prior to joining British Petroleum, he was Head of Security for Southwest Asia Pacific Group at GSK, and also the Country Security Manager for India and South Asia at Unilever. And of course, like so many of us, he began his professional journey in the Indian Army, and he was an officer in the Parachute Regiment. So Nirmit, do join us as soon as you can. Look forward to it. Oh yeah, there you are, Nirmit. Hi. Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning, sir. It was last minute landing, just landing on time on the DZ. I tried all my measures. I could not do it from my laptop. I had to access through my mobile. And that too, when I joined, I was listening to you, but not as a panelist. So yeah,
No worries. You're right in time, just before we started the discussion. So yeah, thank you everyone. And we had a lovely overview and an introduction by General Sharma on the overall strategic and the business outlook for India for 2026. And like he said, 2025 was anything but normal. And the return of Donald Trump as a US president definitely topped the chart as one of the most significant developments of the year. And the ripple effects of his presidency have touched the Indian shores very often causing disruptive effects and throwing challenges at India throughout last year. And as I see it, it'll continue. And it was also a year marked by renewed security challenges, trade wars, and neighborhood instability, some of the aspects which Jan Sharma touched upon, and also a continuing war across cross-border terrorism. And what stood out was India's refusal or, defiance to be pressured into any submission, and its success in exercising hard choices in defense of core national interests. Now, does that translate to a greater global presence? Does that translate to good business sense? We will understand as the year unfolds. But as practitioners of security and risk management, we would really be concerned about apprising our audience of how things will unfold in the coming year. And for that, we have this eminent round of panelists who are going to be talking to us on various aspects. So let me start with you, Bruce, as an overview to the region, looking from the US towards India. And South Asia continues to be a region of immense promise, intense competition, and inherent fragility at the same time. How do you see the risk outlook, especially the geopolitical risk landscape evolving in South Asia in 2026, and with special reference to India, of course? What are the potential opportunities, risks, or trends you foresee in 26 that businesses should be prepared for you? Over to you, Bruce.
Oh, great. I get the broad swath of the entire region, right? My headline, I guess, for South Asia in this year, 2026, goes, I would say, navigating volatility and fragmentation. And the general hit on both of those. And I totally agree that that's the environment that we're going to be navigating. I've identified 6 things here, points that I wanted to discuss in walking through that. And I wanted to start first in kind of regional dynamics, and that, South Asia is shifting from kind of a stable peace to what I call managed friction. States are going to try to keep crises below open conflict. It's obviously Pakistan and India got a little heated, but in general, we don't expect to see that kind of kinetic conflict. But domestic pressures and climate stress and debt and other issues like that are going to produce sharp disruptions that will have to be dealt with throughout the year. Right in that is this strategic fragmentation, where you have the smaller states are going to hedge among India, China, US, Gulf partners for their survival and for their support, and which means policies can swing suddenly, especially affecting infrastructure, the ports, telecom, energy partnerships in the region. The two big ones, I think, for the India connection, of course, India-Pakistan. I still see that as the most acute flashpoint for India. But then we have all of the traditional challenges, water disputes, cross-border militancy, and I would say are the primary triggers slash escalators that we'll see in India-Pakistan relationship. And then the disruptions, the trade, the travel, cross-border supply chains, all of these kinds of things, we're going to have to deal with disruption depending on how that plays out. In India, China, despite the diplomatic agreements and, the border still remains militarized and kinetically active in the north. And I think we're going to see periodic regulatory tightening, vendor scrutiny, data localization issues, demands, all of these things, but more likely than any kind of, major war or anything on that front, but it's still disruptive. The two big ones, one that's in our face today is U.S. policy volatility that we've been dealing with since President Trump took office. His Trump's approach simultaneously strengthens Pakistan, which the general addressed even in the whole situation between India and Pakistan earlier, and it ties, I guess, the India questions back to us is, how should we think about reliability of the U.S. and this annoyance of creating what I call the rehyphenation of India hyphen Pakistan, right? It undermines India's decades-long effort to be seen as a standalone capability and nation at a very strategic level, and so that's been a challenge. And then the other one that sticks to me, and we saw this in Bangladesh and Nepal, and that's this, kind of youth-led instability, the Gen Z protests. And so we've got elections coming in both those countries early this year and serving as potential flashpoints for renewed unrest. And of course, economic strain, corruption, and disillusionment with the political elites, continue to drive mobilization and activation of youth in the region. So that's my pass through kind of South Asia in general going into the year. I'll just hit on, you said, what are the potential opportunities? I see three major opportunity streams for India. This, manufacturing renaissance versus the, via the PLI, the India Production Linked Initiative, I guess. So I see that as a great opportunity, this, bringing things back to India. The infrastructure investment pipeline that's been put in place, traditionally focusing on roads and railroads. We're going to see that pivoting aggressively toward ports, aviation, urban infrastructure, renewable energy, as well as other initiatives. And then we've seen with Hyderabad and elsewhere the tier 2, 3 city expansions. So we see that as a great opportunity out there within India. And, and there's other opportunities within the region around resilience and climate adaptation efforts and supply chain diversification, the China +1 execution and getting diversity in supply. All of that opportunity is going to continue to just grow, and I'm very bullish on India in the years and decades ahead for lots of reasons, but I'll leave it at there.
Thank you, Bruce. That's very nicely summed up, especially the external environment and the three great business opportunities that you pointed out for India. And that's a good overview for us. We'll come back to you for more on this. But so just
Sure.
want to understand from you, since you interact with the security community so extensively in the American markets, what is the what is the sort of feedback or the murmur that you hear about the India growth story, especially when it comes to the risk market, the resilience story, and how do people see India in the coming year? Very, very briefly, just one line or a couple of lines, if you could.
I think we've seen within the US substantial innovation and growth has been generated by Indians in the United States. And I think we see now the opportunity for India to bring that and grow that at home and bring that out to the market. So we see one, the value that we've gotten from India domestically, and we also see the strength and growth of India in AI and technology and manufacturing and all of these things. So we really feel like there's going to be this wave of the rise of India.
Thanks. That's a great perspective. Thanks. And like I said, we'll come back to you for more. But
Sure.
now I just wanted to shift the lens to an inside lens or a India-based overview. And for that, I'll go to Saurav because he's also been handling the Asia Pacific region from the security perspective and resilience perspective for his current and past organizations. Saurav, how do you see the geopolitical risk to India, especially the neighborhood risk, some of the things that Jan Sharma spoke, and even Bruce touched upon what's happening in Bangladesh and Nepal? What could be the risks of these internal turmoils in the neighboring countries, and what do you think would be the knock-on or the spillover effects in India, and how do they affect us as risk managers?
Hey, thanks, Khan Pradhan. But at the outset, I'd like to flag that whatever I'm saying, any words that are coming out of my mouth are my own as a resilience professional, as a past security professional. These are from my own experiences and my own analysis. They're not to be associated with anything that my current employer does or has a stance on. So just want to get that out of the way. Geopolitical stuff, great segue, Karpran, and obviously can be a hot potato, but I'm going to take a slightly different approach. And for me, it's more about, less about the direct interstate conflict and more about the indirect pressures that are created in the neighborhood. We've got Bangladesh, Pakistan that are hot topics from last year, but we've all dealt with issues that spilled over from Sri Lanka, issues that are still spilling over from Myanmar and the crisis over the indirect issues, and of course Afghanistan. So overall, I think there are 4 points that I thought I would cover, and I hope and I will definitely try to keep myself within the 3-minute deadline that you've given me. I think one issue that is definitely affecting all of us. If you go back to our history, we are culturally and socially quite similar. We're quite interdependent. Recent past and some 100 odd years in the past, you can look at fractures that have separated us unnaturally in certain cases. So political unrest, economic collapse in countries like Myanmar, Afghanistan, and even other places like Nepal or Bangladesh can cause cross-border movement. It strains humanitarian resources, can create flashpoints, protests, etc. So those are things for us to obviously keep in our mind. One great book, if I can sort of segue here, is Amitav Ghosh's Glass Palace, written a few years back, but it is a brilliant piece on how all of us are interconnected and how the Japanese invasion of Burma caused absolute chaos in a family spanning over 3 generations. The other point is obviously organized crime and cross-border militancy. That means obviously if we've got for us as corporates, if we've got presence closer to the borders, we saw issues with blackouts, etc., that started happening. And then trade disruptions, we saw overfly issues, especially for regional supply chains, transit routes. Even if our own economy is strong and resilient, but disruptions in these corridors, port accesses, etc., can ripple into additional costs, timelines for us. The final issue that I'd also like to highlight is cyber and AI-driven disruptions, either carried out by state actors or just by other people that are more enabled using artificial intelligence. Those of us who have worked, even fleetingly in the cybersecurity area, know from our past what a script kiddie was. A script kiddie was taking code and then just using it to see if they could find vulnerabilities. You don't no longer need that. AI can do that for you. So power institutions in India, fake news to amplify communal tensions, and then that ripples into us dealing with those human issues for our colleagues and people that we care for. So I think just to tie everything together, as Janet Sharma said earlier, it's a systemic issue. We're not isolationist. Spillovers from the neighborhoods instability can definitely manifest as security, humanitarian, and reputational challenges. So multi-layered preparedness is the order of the day. Back to you, Kalpana.
No, thank you. And that's it's a good way of looking at things. And AI and cybersecurity issues are something which have no borders. So other than what's happening in the neighborhood, we also need to be aware of these risks. But there's another thing that besets South Asia, and especially India on a regular basis, is the frequent weather disruptions, the issues related to climate change, and these have huge impact on business growth and business operations. Vinay, just wanted to pick your brains on this. How do the various kinds of weather disruptions, sometimes they are made by man-made causes also, they become pretty common. How are the corporate risk and crisis managers going to plan and handle these in the coming year, or what would be your advice to people in this business?
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone, and wish you all a very happy new year. Like my previous speaker, I'd like to reiterate that the views that I echo here are purely personal and have no reflection on the organization that I come from. My voice is slightly iffy, so kindly bear with that, sir. Coming to the questions, unpredictability view weather changes has only increased in last few years. If we just take 2025 as a case, uh, we've had so many changes that we saw with regard to the events happening, the timelines, the durations that they were, the pattern that was there, everything kind of changed. You had monsoon, which started off earlier in the month of May and went on till say December. You had rains in Mumbai on 1st of January as well, sir. So and Delhi, you have this perennial issue of smog. It's only going worse, getting worse by day. Uh, so you cannot predict how it's going to be this particular year. Earlier, it was very, very simple. Seasons came, seasons went, and people planned their life work accordingly. Uh, in Delhi, as you see, AQI is one big issue. Uh, it was not as if Delhi never had smog earlier, but people were not very, very conversant or not very the information with regard to AI was not all that pervasive. You had now you have mobiles giving you AKI, on on a minute by minute basis, so that now that people have become much more aware, they desire, they want a better, control over these kind of issues, which earlier they wouldn't have asked for. The weather has its implications in many ways, on life as well as work, whether it is food supply, whether it is electricity supply, the company that I come from. So, demand and supply, if it is not predictable, it has implication on the reliability of that particular service. So, it does have connotations there as well. The good part that I see is you have enough apps, and obviously the social media and the electronic media bombards you with these particular things on a daily basis. Uh, the information is readily available for a person, for an organization, as to how it's going to be in short term. How the weather is going to be tomorrow, day after, the day after. It might change a bit, but generally they are accurate. So this is the good parts. Uh, However, we got to understand that while the information might be readily available for next few days or maybe a few weeks, the planning and execution, to counter or to accommodate those changes, that's a slightly medium term or long term. It may take weeks, it may take months. So you have an issue on that particular path. The solution that I see here is that instead of being responsive to a event, a crisis, or whatever you want to call it, sir, instead of being responsive, we got to be resilient to these weather changes at our offices. Now, I have a few, the ways that one can actually do that. One is when you plan, you do not plan for your own site individually or your own organization individually. If you are scattered in a city or scattered in a region, you might as well plan for at a regional level, at a wider level. So that will help you, optimizing your resources. Second is, so far as the response on ground is concerned, from document based response, it should be scenario based response. So this is something that one might look at. Collaboration with the external as well as internal as well as external stakeholders, be it private or the government players, is something that we should be looking at more seriously, sir. That's it.
Thank you, Vinay. Very well brought out. And, some of the thoughts that I echo from what you said is that we conduct crisis simulation exercises for various organizations. And one of the things that always comes up, especially in the Indian scenario, is that the government infrastructure is not adequately either geared up to handle certain emergencies, especially those caused by weather disruptions, or they are so overwhelmed that as a commercial organization, as a corporate entity, we really cannot rely completely on such mechanisms, and we need to have our own resilience plans in place to protect our people, our assets, and our business. So that's a great point. And taking off from weather disruptions, Nirmit, other than weather disruptions, there have been multiple other disruptions to regular business operations, especially travel of senior executives from and to India from abroad or within the country. And you are in an organization where your people often have to go to various remote places as well. So, how do you see risk managers or travel risk managers looking at these challenges in the coming year? While when I said that, yes, you have wonderful app-based awareness platforms, but the recovery and response and the resilience is something that you have to develop within your organization yourself.
Thank you, Sushil sir, and I hope I am audible. And Happy New Year to everyone here. And very important question, especially for an organization where you have got footprints across the globe. We have got, operations not only limited to, developed part of the within the countries, but also in the remote and extreme locations, not even in India and across the. So, and my organization is not the only one. There are multiple organizations like ours who operate in, in high risk environments that can be, man-made, that can be geopolitically led, or that can be through, environmentally or accessibility wise, it becomes difficult. However, since business priority is always there, and as security managers, our responsibility becomes important to make sure that the business is able to do what they are need to do in a safe and secure manner. With that, I say 2025, if I bring it home, especially for security leaders within our country, was very, I'd say, challenging and exciting. We have seen, everything in last year, whether it was crisis of Op Sindoor, whether it was a terrorist attack in attempt in Delhi, whether it is what we have been facing, extreme weather conditions, pollution in Delhi and other regions, or travel restriction that was caused by airline Indigo, and what we have seen the fallout which is there. And also what sort of talked about was the regional crisis or geopolitical crisis happening between India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, even going wider in the South Asia. It was fallout in Korea, it was, Thailand, Cambodia conflict. All those disruption and those scenarios, we can imagine, but there will be a new crisis that will be there on our face. But saying that, I think so, travel becomes very important, especially with the global MNCs, where if I bring back to home in our company, last year we had around 2,400 international travelers. Now there we have got two categories of travelers, which are international, and the other one is the domestic. When in India, the understanding and the of how the country is there, how country is divided, what events are happening. For international travelers, it becomes challenging because people come with a lot of assumption. Managing the domestic travelers become easy because you are staying here, you know the culture, you know the place, you have got your local context, and you can reach out to people who are outside your organization also to support, whether it is distributors, suppliers, network kind of a thing. However, the important focus and duty of care becomes important for organizations where you have got international travelers and who are more dependent on organization to provide that safe and secure visibility and travel management for them. And we have got a very exhaustive travel risk management program. And I'm saying not we, there will be other organization also where, Intel-led, information-driven travel programs helps the business leaders to plan their travel easily. So one is where you have got some leading indicators, whether it is natural or disaster or the weather events that are happening, or political events that are happening in a country like India. We have got, if elections are there, or if any crisis, overnight crisis because of the mob that happens, or any geopolitical event shift that happens, and even the historical patterns, particular death anniversaries, particular events that may trigger a reaction that may lead to a localized crisis where you have got hotspot of travelers around. And I think so those leading indicators can be very well uh, uh, picked up, processed. One is through partners, like in this case, we are thankful to MitKat to provide that insight and about what is happening. You have got seven, a weekly program. You have got monthly look ahead, and same way we have got our own SOC that has last year issued around 96 advisories. We monitored around 20 earthquakes, and we have monitored around 3 cyclones in that case. So predictive and leading indicators become very useful for us to preempt and inform our travelers who are coming to India, and using technology where we have got a single app-based travel booking platform. That is very useful because that gives you complete visibility as a dashboard, who is coming in, who is going out, who is your host. Now that also helps us because everything is governed. We have got countries that are categorized at L1, L2. Once that is done, I think so. You are in a very good space where you have got a visibility about who is coming, when is coming, what are the events that may impact. You have informed the travelers, you are having contact with the travelers. So everything becomes as a business as usual. You are not reacting and you are not seeing things as crisis or emergency or firefighting. It is more of a planned risk management. And then you have got, if a crisis happens, you have got support through uh, your international SOS is there. You have got, travel apps are there that helps you to react and provide that confidence and support to the management. So I'll say the crisis will not stop. What is happening in the global West now will actually open a lot of Pandora and a lot of conflicts that may arise localized, and comprehensive travel risk management plan will be very important for businesses to support, for the risk manager to support the businesses leaders to travel across and do their business.
Thank you, Nirmit. Very well sort of summarized, and really appreciate the fact that you picked up on this issue that preventive and predictive risk management, especially for travel management, is more important than having a response program. And if you can predict and you can preempt any of the risks, that itself is a huge step in keeping your people safe when they travel across the world. Now from these naturogenic risks, I'm going to also jump back to one of the key anthropogenic risks, that something which Jan Sharma also pointed out is technology. And from that perspective, I'm going to completely move to a different field with Amit. And Amit, with India's promulgation of the DPDPA, it's suddenly brought data privacy and protection of PII into the governance and compliance regime. And how do you see companies gearing themselves up to cope with this? Where is it that security managers can probably take the lead and be a integral part of this risk management program, rather than just looking at it from the outside and letting the technology people handle it?
Thank you. Thank you again, Sushil. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be on this platform. MitKat always curates the most exceptional insight sessions. And thanks, Colonel Sam and Pawan as well, for your collegiality over the years. It's a privilege. It's a great question, Sushil, about DPDP and specifically around what security leaders can do. Look, there's a lot of, every time there is a new regulation, there is always a lot of action and opportunity. But I think in this instance, security leaders have a very, very important role. And there are two specific things that I would urge that we look at. First of all, don't try and get into into the front line of this. This is a protect role that security leaders need to play. There is a lot of work that the legal leaders, compliance folks, CISOs, even the board, with the stewardship role, as well as new risk and audit committee, enterprise risk management expansion that needs to happen. But there are three specific things that security leaders specifically can look to do with respect to the DPDP. The first thing is to understand that there are some fundamental central legal obligations on every company that works in India. And these are not just about the penalties. The penalties can go up to as much as INR 250 crores. This is also about reputation, about third-party risk management, and so on and so forth. Security leaders can understand this intuitively. They understand this, from a very core point of view, and being able to kind of put reasonable security safeguards, which is what the Act says, includes protecting physical infrastructure. It's not just about being able to kind of keep a data inventory, manage consent, and ensure that these things are protected from a digital point of view. Physical security infrastructure being protected is as critical and is oftentimes seen as being something that is or may fall over. But I think our security leaders can focus their attention on what or other functions are not really looking at. At the same time, they have to kind of enhance the data-centric security controls. We all manage visitor data. We manage access control. We look at key card driven access and so on and so forth. Access to laptops and servers are all taken as a given. But these significant standard security functions have now taken on a very significantly enhanced regulatory and therefore a compliance imperative now. So what used to be, standard governance practices have now become significant regulatory risks for companies. And that scaling up is something that security leaders should be kind of taking on and understanding. Which brings me to the final point, and this is a cliche. Companies have either been hacked already or don't know they've been hacked or are about to be hacked because everybody will get hacked. Understanding, and many of the leaders here who've already spoken have spoken about the importance of training. You yourself, Sushil, have spoken about it. Resolving for breach incidents is something that security leaders need to start preparing for today itself. Incident management playbooks, what is it that the notification requirements are? The minute the breach happens, you have 6-hour responsibility, you have 24-hour responsibility, you have 48-hour responsibility. The responsibility is even more steep for listed companies. What are those? How are the affected individuals going to be informed in addition to the regulatory stakeholders? What is the third-party data management standards that you have to maintain and upkeep? Each of these are processes around management of data breach, the obligation timelines for which are very steep. And security leaders have always proven themselves as being fast and nimble. We proved ourselves time and time again during the pandemic, any other incidents, etc. It is the stuff that the key functional leaders are not looking at. The legal guys, the compliance folks, the CISOs, the board. There is a lot happening at the periphery around DPDP that security leaders can look at. And so those three things I would say are very important and will actually allow security leaders to scale up and keep and maintain their place at the top table.
Thank you so much, Amit. And I think I'm going to come back to you later for a little more insight into more technology-related risks, especially in the Indian scenario, without sort of impinging on the other panels and what they are going to discuss. But I'm going to zoom out again to a slightly higher level, back to Bruce. And Bruce, we are all very puzzled, concerned, worried. And at the same time, sort of, we have this feeling of what's going on in the world with something like Venezuela, US intervention there. And obviously, one of our major concerns as a country is the global energy security. At the same time, the implications on supply chain control over oil, semiconductors, technology to India. How do you see this unfolding as a risk for India in the coming year?
Well, let's start with, I guess, the global energy security. How's that? So, the forced removal of Maduro on whatever, however the U.S. is looking at it, is less about Venezuela and oil volumes. It's more about the precedent that is being set, right? And so, energy flows now with this new proposal that Trump put out to get the oil, bring it to the U.S. and sell it, and keep much of the proceeds is a very significant precedent. So in the near term, as far as the energy market, the impact's going to be more kind of like headline-driven volatility rather than any major moves on the pricing. If anything, as on the supply side, Venezuela, used to produce 2.5, 3 million barrels a day, and I think when recently it was about 800,000 barrels. So they're really not producing much oil. So if the U.S. is successful in working with Venezuela to bring more oil to the market, then it's going to lower prices. So that's actually going to be a good thing. And right now, India has very little connection to Venezuelan oil production. So So all of that would be upside for India. I think the precedent that I want to come back to, and I captured it here. I said, when the great powers decide a supply chain threatens their interests, in this case, oil, international law and regional objections won't constrain them. South Asia needs to plan for a world where energy security depends less on markets and more on strategic alignments. And that's where, the work has to be done, is how are you going to manage these alignments to maintain diversity of oil supply and work through that. And we saw that, kind of a series, and I'll just go through a few of these, like, what I'll call kind of strategic contradictions that India deals with. And Russian crude, for example, and we had this headbutt with the US on this, where about 2.5% of your imports before Ukraine to now 50% of your oil in last year came from Russia. And so it's like, how can you present yourself, one, as a financier of what Russia's doing, but also trying to position as a democratic alternative to China and expecting partnership from the West. So that's the issues I think that have to be wrestled with. You mentioned semiconductors, kind of similarly, where China and Taiwan have a stronghold on that supply. I think 61% I have on my note here of India's semiconductors come from China. So again, I think that India is doing the right thing. You have the semiconductor, mission. I think it's called the India mission, and you're producing chips. You're going to ramp that up. But I was looking at some stats that are quite alarming, and that where India is today, basically producing 28 nanometer chips. China has 44 fabs with 22 more under construction. So to get to any level of parity of being able to manage your own semiconductor supply chain would require an all of government and all of India commitment to try to really ramp up on that. So I'm just going to finish with what I'll call the three imperatives that I see. And again, these are from the U.S. perspective and mine. Number one, and these are my humble perspectives. You need to exit Russia oil completely. Strategic ambiguity between what's happening and what's not happening is no longer viable. So that would be my first one. The second one is, given this disparity of capability and capacity, you need to accelerate your partnership with Taiwan despite China's objections. The one China policy serves no strategic purpose when Beijing is arming Pakistan. So that would be number two. And then the number three one back on China is, and India has made strides in this regard, to systematically diversify from China, bring it to Bharat, to India. And those would be the three big arcs of what I would call imperatives for India to rise and become more reliable and stable for themselves.
Thank you, Bruce. Great overview and excellent advice, especially the acceptance of Russian oil completely, which I think India does, but the rest of the world yet has to sort of align itself to this acceptance level. Just a quick heads up to the rest of the panelists. We are running a little short on time because we had great discussions. So the following questions, I'll request you to sort of compress your answers so that we don't impinge on the other panels. And coming back to Saurav on this, that, we talked about various issues related to the risks in India, but Indian cities are essentially the economic hubs for global businesses, something that Bruce also touched about in his opening remarks. How do you see the risks to these cities and what could be the implications for resilience? How can we build better resilience to operate in our cities?
Many thanks, Colonel Pradhan. Also, one more thing is my attitude towards all of this is I will play with the cards that have been dealt with. I can't control, how geopolitics plays out in various parts across the world, or in the neighborhood, or how much the climate is being changed, etc. But I think what is important is what can we control, right? So, and just coming back, great point. I think, and I'll shift slightly and speak more toward climate and environmental vulnerabilities that we've got for India, especially from the context of Indian cities that we spoke to. We've got these operational realities. These are no longer abstract concepts of climate or environmental issues. And as you mentioned, most of our multinationals operate out of these major urban centers. In fact, according to one estimate, more than 60% of Indian citizens also probably reside in urban centers, so greatly increasing the pressure on these urban cities. And just in the just making sure that I'm keeping your request to keep myself short. I'll basically three things that I would like to speak to. One is, of course, towards the intensification of extreme weather, right? So you're seeing, as brought out earlier as well by Nimit, earlier, longer, and of course Vinay as well, longer and heavier heat waves, heavier monsoon bursts, more and more urban flooding, right? So I think I follow IMD quite closely, and the data for 2025 does mention it is the warmest years on record. Rainfall variability increasing. So what for us, right? So what is our mobility is disrupted. We need more and more of our colleagues to get to the office, go back. People are no longer working from wherever, right? Mobility is a major problem. Power supplies, right, at our offices, or as a backup for people working at home, and of course safety of our colleagues. It's no longer an abstract thing. It's no longer slightly warm. It's a threat to how you breathe air, right? So another second point that I'd like to bring up is the infrastructure stress that amplifies the impact of whatever we face. Many Indian cities have very aging infrastructure, including drainage systems that go back to when we were still under colonial yoke. We've got more and more limited green cover, very high levels of concretization. So again, what does this do? Even a 2-hour cloudburst, all of us have seen, can paralyze a metro, not just for us, but for days, right? Similarly, you got heat waves that strain our power grids. It's increasingly becoming worse and worse to stay in our cities in the heat of summer. And then, of course, as I also mentioned a bit earlier, and my third point is the knock-on effects on health. Primarily, heat and pollution can raise major spikes in health, absenteeism, insurance costs, right? So we pay for medical insurance, etc. So these are going to be ripple effects across. Again, just to get ourselves back on what can we do?
We'll have to wind up because we got just.
I will go back to you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So Vinay, again, very quickly, I know you have a lot to speak on that because this is something that you raised as a concern. How do you see this issue of technology and the pervasive social media presence in the office and personal space? How does it affect corporate security, and what are the concerns that you feel that we should address on priority? Just very briefly.
I'll keep it short, sir, as short as possible. Should this be a concern for leadership in corporate sector? Is the question, sir. So, to my mind, it might not be a concern as of this particular year, but yes, it should be a matter of interest, something that the senior leadership should look out for. The whole thing about personal space and professional space, or personal time, professional time, that those boundaries have blurred long back. So COVID has seen to it that we no longer live in that black and white world. No longer are you working 9 to 5, or after 5 it's your personal time and on. The spilling has taken place big time. The mobile laptops have ensured that, social media more so, sir. So, physically, all this is happening. What is also happening is in a person's mind, eventually, this space or this blurring has taken place. No longer is a person in his or her mind able to segregate these two things. Sooner or later, it will happen. So, it is happening all the same.
Thank you. Thanks.
Uh,
Great
uh,
point.
yes.
And,
So,
yeah, I know. We need to hear more from you on this, but
fine.
we have time subsequently.
Sure. Sir.
Amit, just keeping on the technology track, I know we have a third panel which is completely sort of devoted to technology risk. But quickly, your advice to physical security practitioners on how should they be looking at these AI-driven and cyber resilience risks? Very briefly.
I think if I was to just boil it down to one thing, for security professionals, first of all, I mean, I do think that physical and cyber are kind of merging in a way that is very appropriate for people with a glass half empty risk mindset that security leaders have. And I think it's important for security leaders to scale up and understand how they can help. But it's most important to have a no list, Sushil. We don't want to be doing everything because the business is already taking care of a lot of things. But there are some very specific areas where security leaders can uniquely come in and provide help. For instance, if I just leave it at one thing, resilience is important because it provides a company with stability, and stability is critical for innovation and growth. How are you creating those oases of calm within your organization where innovation can happen? I think that should be the one thing that security leaders, risk leaders should be thinking.
Great point. And I really like the part about having a no list, because today security leaders tend to jump into everything which they see as a risk and which they want to control. But it's best to know where you should stay away from. And to sort of wind up the panel and to have the last word on the subject, Nirmit, very briefly, if you could just summarize, what do you see as the top 5 risks to business organizations from the risk and resilience perspective in the coming year?
So the panel has already made my life easy, and also I had to just pull out the list from my team that gave me the top 5. And when the insight from Bruce, Amit, Saurav, and others were there, I think so as a team we are doing we are on the right track, because for us, I will say top listed one is the cyber security risk is the first one, because of the impact and because of the exposure and the risk which is there. Second, geopolitical risk in the kind of land shift that is happening around the world globally, that becomes very concerning and to watch for a space. Amit brought out data and intellectual property loss. So these are the 3 big tickets which happen because of the impact they have across. Fourth is people and travel risk, which we consider. Fifth is extreme weather, kind of infrastructure stress which is happening, kind of shift in the global globally it is happening. So 5 are there, and the other not too important five, but still this are there is insider risk, supply chain risk, reputational risk, activism, and third party risk. So I will keep it short, but the panel has already told we were speaking about, and thanks to you to bring those five important topics is cyber, geopolitical, data, people, travel security, and weather.
Thank you so much, Nirmit, and great way of summarizing it. And in fact, the other five which you also mentioned, some of these are going to be touched upon in the next panel and in the third panel. So it's not as if we are ignoring these aspects. And I would really like to thank the panel for a wonderful round of discussion. I know we were running a bit against time, and these things are so interesting that we tend to want to keep listening to what the experts have to say about this. So thank you all for a wonderful session. Request everyone to please give them a big round of applause, whether it's physically or virtually. Thank you for being part of the session. Look forward to having you in more of our sessions in times to come. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
And
Yes,
thanks,
thank you.
Bruce. Good night. Go to sleep.
Thank you, everyone. Have best wishes for a great year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pradhan, and thank you, panelists. It's been fascinating last couple of hours and much more to come. General Sharma first decoded what the world would look like in 2026, and panel one building up on that with our distinguished speakers. It's been invigorating last couple of hours. Now, continuing the event, who better to take this forward than Atreya Bhatt, Intel Manager, APAC, Data Surfer Operations, MitKat, who will unveil India's Industry Acknowledged India Risk Outlook 2026. After that, we have a presentation of MitKat's proprietary AI-driven risk intelligence platform Data Surfer, which combines technology with human intelligence for risk monitoring by our in-house innovator Abhijit Korde, product manager MitKat Advisory. Atreya and Abhijit, over to you.
Right. Thank you so much, Ankita, for the kind introduction. A very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to ladies and gents, colleagues, partners, and distinguished guests. Thank you so much for tuning in to Mars 2026 across different countries, across multiple time zones. It truly means a great deal to us. It's been a fantastic Mars 2026 so far. Thank you so much, panelists and Colonel Pradhan, for setting the stage and enabling Mars to be the primary platform for discussing India's external risk operating landscape in 2026. Now, I'd like to take this opportunity to formally release the India Risk Outlook 2026, which is our flagship annual assessment of all the risks that are going to shape the operating environment in India going into the coming year. Now, the year 2025 was a watershed year for India's risk landscape. We witnessed how external shocks, whether geopolitical escalation, trade disruption, or cyber incidents, could very immediately turn into operational risks. At the same time, internal stressors such as climate shocks, political polarization, AI-enabled cyber risks raised the baseline risk for businesses and institutions alike. The India Risk Outlook is built around one core reality. We are no longer dealing with isolated risks. We are navigating interconnected and multi-domain disruptions. Without further ado, we'd like to show you a sneak peek into IRO 2026 through a short video that we've prepared. Here we go. Thank you so much. Now, I'd like to take you through the IRO 2026 section by section. Please allow me to share my screen. Right. Now, the IRO 2026 starts with an astutely summarized overall risk landscape of India by our Chairman General Sudhir Sharma. This is followed by a summarization of the top 5 risks that we as MitKat anticipate to affect businesses in multiple aspects across the year. We then move forward to a very carefully calibrated India risk matrix, which considers multiple topics and subtopics. And then our flagship India Risk Assessment Map 2026, which is a district-wise visualization of multiple risk categories and sub-risk categories across 750 plus districts all along the length and breadth of this country. We are then seeing the executive summary, which is a very crisp yet elaborate summary of the entire report. If you want to understand what we intend on covering towards the rest of the report as well. And then we move into a very detailed assessment of 8 different risk categories, along with multiple subtopics that impacted India in 2025, and also some risks that we anticipate to crop up and become significant disruptors in 2026. We start with geopolitical risks. Moving forward, we have political risks, extremism risks, environmental and health risks, socioeconomic risks, infrastructural risks, economic risks, and finally, technological risks. And as you see, each one of these major risk categories also have several secondary sub-risk categories, which have been very carefully scrutinized and analyzed by a bunch of subject matter experts at MitKat to offer a very neutral lens into how each one of these categories or subcategories can impact businesses heading into 2026. Now, I'd like to move ahead and also release the India Risk Map 2026. The India Risk Map 2026 translates our national risk assessment into more granular district-wise visualization, integrating geopolitical, civil unrest, environment, health, infrastructure, and crime. Each district's risk rating is derived from a weighted aggregation of incident frequency, persistence, and institutional response capacity. This enables stakeholders to move from a pan-India view to a more location-specific exposure assessment and operational planning. I'd like to thank every single colleague who has made the India Risk Outlook and Mars India 2026 a grand success. From my team of bright analysts at the Data Surfer Intel team to the marketing team who have worked endless hours to make this report and this event better known, to the tech team who have really poured into their screens, extracting data and unraveling complicated risk assessment formulae, to, of course, the design team who finally today will get a full night's sleep after having found it difficult to distinguish day and night over the past several months now. I'd also like to sincerely thank our senior management for the constant guidance and mentorship, and their timely insights into explaining how certain risk factors can develop into larger risks into the coming year. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. The India Risk Outlook will be available to download in the link shared on the chat box here. And finally, now I'd like to pass on the mic to Abhijit Korde, who will demonstrate the ever-evolving capabilities of our in-house proprietary external risk monitoring AI dashboard, datasurfer.ai. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Atreya. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining Mars 2026. I'll be taking you through the Data Surfer application. So I'm sharing my screen. I'll just take a 15-30 seconds to introduce how that the process works, and then I can take you to the actual live application. Is my screen visible?
Yes, Abhijit.
Yeah. Okay, so the Data Surfer is an AI-powered risk intelligence platform that basically converts the global risk data into an actionable intelligence. It is developed to empower enterprises to anticipate, prepare for, and respond to the global threats, maybe if it is affecting their people, assets, or operations. Now, how we are generating this risk intelligence is like, first is a technology pillar where we are inputting or providing more than 20,000 plus sources across 40 plus languages across the globe. The sources include the government official sources, news feeds, social media coverage, and the weather feeds. So the data is collected, the identification happens for the risk events, then the AI structures it to produce what we call as an informative alert, prepared to give a near real-time heads up, which are also curated by the first layer of analysts. Now, these informative alerts are provided to you on your mobile and web application. From these informative alerts, the ones which are highly important, critical in nature, are picked up by our second layer of human analysts. They are the subject matter experts, and they produce a detailed analysis with the impact assessment, what we call as an intelligence alert. The other option is like every user can also request any alert to be converted into an intelligence alert so that they can get a detailed assessment for that particular topic. And once the intelligence alert is created, it is provided through email, WhatsApp, mobile web application, and also through the APIs. The second is like harnessing the power of AI. We can now also create a predictive report using the Gen AI capabilities, and it is then provided it then creates the predictive reports in maybe 30 to 60 seconds, which not only gives you what is happening but also provides you the crucial foresight that what could happen or how the trend is going to impact your business. These reports can be downloaded in PDF, which can be created through the mobile and web application. Now I'll quickly take you to the actual application. This is the Data Surfer Predict application, created basically to monitor the assets and your geography of subscription. Now in the main screen, you can see all your assets mapped, and each asset shows a different kind of risk exposure from very high to very low. You can also check what is happening near your asset by simply clicking or selecting your asset. Once you have selected the asset, you can also monitor what is happening closer to your office. And then the call to action buttons are given to request analysis to get the intelligence alert, add to watch list if you want to see the developing situation, and bookmark for your records in future. Now, as I said, there is also a capability of creating a predictive report. So suppose if I pick up in any event, the Gen AI will take into consideration our data from 2019 along with the open source, and using our data, it will create a predictive report which will give you the foresight about the about the event. So recently, the Berlin witnessed a disastrous power outage. So here you can see the executive summary about what happened, and based on whether that incident took place in the past, what is the expected duration for which it is going to last, how it is going to how the event is going to unveil. It will also focus on what is the top or current situation, so that you can remain on top of the current situation. It categorizes into 10 risk dimensions, that which are the top three risk dimensions which are likely to see the impact. In this case, people safety, infrastructure, and business operation, and what is the expected impact on these three parameters. Then it provides a recommended action for all the security leaders, and it can also customize the recommendations based on your industry. Finally, it provides the impact assessment for the five critical domains. It also provides you the collateral impact because of such event, which other events are also likely to get, or business operations are likely to see the impact. And then finally, it gives a powerful scenario analysis, that what is the baseline with the highest probability, what is the possible scenario, what will be the moderate escalation, and what will be the business impact for that. And finally, what will be the severe escalation in case the things go out of hand. Now, this kind of reports can be produced for any event which is currently live or is planned in the future, so that you can also get the foresight and prepare better for the possible impact. On the right hand side, you can see all the events which are impacting or happening near to in all your mapped assets. So you can see the category, you can see the title, and which asset is in the vicinity, and you can take the actions based on that. Now the next one, so this home page is created to monitor all your asset. The second function is you can monitor all the geography of your subscription. So when you get the subscribe for any particular country, all the data from that particular country will be available here to monitor. So you can see the events which are taking place in that country irrespective of your office location. On the right hand side, you can see the latest updates in the format, where you can see the in alert card is prepared in such a way that it gives you a quick information about what is happening in your particular geography. With one click, you can access the description of the event and the possible recommendations. And for intelligence alert provides a detailed assessment. uh, Apart from latest updates, you can also see the top events which are trending. So here there is a shooting. So this is a live thing happening right now in United States. There is a shooting incident that happened in Salt Lake City. I think couple of like half an hour back. You can use the data surfer predict to get the complete information about how the event is unfolding, how it is happening. You can get in touch with analysts and request them to give the detailed assessment. And if you want a continuous monitoring, then you can add it to the watch list so that the team will start populating and providing you with the situational updates. So an entire end-to-end monitoring can be possible through the this map view monitoring. Next is the other functions, like apart from monitoring includes risk analytics and risk reports. In risk analytics, you can either do it for geography or for your assets. So if as an example, I have taken the Philippines for last 1 month, so you can see the event timeline. So it picked up, in the last month. So you can also click and see which events were reported in Philippines during that particular day. You can see the distribution of events as per the region. So Metro Manila, Cebu are witnessing the highest number of frequency of events. You can see using the frequency distribution. So basically the concentration heat map. You can see the country is vulnerable to rainfall, earthquake, and fire in last 2 months, and then the distribution of impact levels. So there is a significant number of crucial events, which are the high impact events, are taking place in the country. So this is how you can have the complete analytical assessment of that country. You can do it for a comparative assessment for multiple countries, multiple cities, or you can also do it for your mapped asset across the globe. Then lastly, there is a risk reports and advisories, where in a single click you can have access to the entire repository of all our reports, which you can download in PDF format. There are periodic reports which are published every month. Then there are event-based advisories. So and then there are risk reviews which are available to download. Apart from this, there is always 24/7 support of human analysts is there. So in case of any bespoke question, bespoke query, or you need any kind of human support, the team is always available. Now this was a data surfer predict, which is currently live and available for demo. So anyone who is interested in demo, please you can find a link in the comment box. You can book a demo from there, or you can get in touch with my colleague Kunal. Now in 2026, we are also coming up with suite of applications apart from data surfer predict. So there will be data surfer GoSafe. That will be a travel risk intelligence platform. We will show you the demo of that. SAM AI, which is agent trained on data surfer 6-7 years of data, created to help the analyst. And then there is a Next Alert, which is a communication tool. So I'll quickly give you the glimpse of data surfer GoSafe and the SAM AI, which are our 2026 upcoming applications. So Kunal, can you show the video of data surfer GoSafe?
Yeah.
Introducing Data Surfer GoSafe, AI-powered travel risk management platform that gives you real-time visibility of your travelers and assets and helps you act on risks before they escalate. Let's see how it works.
Hi Sam, Rachel is traveling from Mumbai to London on 22nd October. Please add her as a new traveler in the system. Note that Rachel is a VIP.
Understood. Adding Rachel to the system. Please provide her full name, designation, contact details, and other information. Now, let's move to the travel itinerary for the London trip. Please upload a CSV file with the itinerary or enter the details here.
Uploading the CSV file, here it is.
Thank you. Rachel's London trip has been added to the system. Would you like me to send Rachel a pre-travel advisory explaining the overall situation in the city and country?
Yes, please.
Generating. A pre-travel advisory has been generated and dispatched.
What's happening in London on 22nd October?
There is a protest scheduled in Kingston, London on 22nd October. Rachel and 2 other travellers are scheduled to be in London on that date.
Create an incident alert and dispatch it to the affected travellers.
Generating. Incident alert created and dispatched.
Sam, keep track of this travel, since Rachel is a VIP.
Noted.
Protests are happening in London today. What is the current risk exposure?
Rachel and 2 other travelers are currently in close proximity to the protest site, which increases their risk exposure. Do you want me to generate a travel impact advisory with recommendations to move them to a safer distance?
Yes, create the travel impact advisory.
Generating. Travel impact advisory created and dispatched. Risk exposure has been reduced after implementing the recommended measures.
Good. Now open the dashboard. I'd like to see which other travelers are scheduled to arrive in London today. Alright. Send the travel impact advisory to the travelers scheduled to arrive in London tomorrow as well.
Generating. Travel impact advisory created and dispatched.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you, Kunal. So as you see, the Go Safe is meant to monitor the travelers not only before travel, during travel, and after travel to take the end-to-end monitoring of travelers into consideration. Moving forward, gathering the data and recommendations over the years, we have created a AI assistant which is called SAM AI that basically automates the work of risk analysts, creating the structured alerts, advisories, assessments, which will be very much useful in all the command centers where the analysts are working. So I'll give the quick glimpse of SAM AI as an application. So Kunal.
Every day, security and intelligence teams face a flood of signals, breaking news, emerging threats, travel disruptions, and crisis across the globe. Sorting through it all takes hours. In a world where minutes matter, delayed action increases risk. Traditional methods of intelligence gathering simply can't keep up. Introducing SAM AI, your AI risk analyst. Built on DataSurfer's proprietary risk intelligence data, SAM AI is designed to transform how professionals monitor, assess, and respond to global risks. With SAM AI, intelligence workflows become seamless. Users can select the required output from a list of predefined actions, alerts and dashboards, briefs and advisories, risk assessments, risk reports, or simply ask SAM AI through the master dialog box. SAM AI automatically selects the right workflow, guides you with the necessary inputs, and delivers the intelligence product you need. Every output can be refined, tailored, and branded, ready to share with executives, security leaders, or frontline teams. Unlike generic AI models, SAM AI is purpose-built for security and intelligence. Trained on DataSurfer's curated dataset across 12 risk categories, SAM AI delivers accurate, consistent, and professional-grade outputs you can trust. SAM AI is not here to replace analysts. It's here to empower them, to multiply productivity, ensure consistency, and keep your teams ahead of risk. SAM AI, the AI risk analyst that never sleeps.
Thank you. So as you saw, DataSurfer going forward will serve as a central operating system for a risk and resilience, hosting multiple interconnected applications. Each application is developed to address a distinct use case, but all of them will basically share a common risk data, which is a trade like based on our 12 risk categories, a unified AI brain that is a SAM AI. And third is it will have a consistent user experience, basically to ensure that all the users will move seamlessly between the monitoring, assessment, and communication and response. So anyone interested, please feel free to reach out for a demo, or you can simply get in touch with my colleague Kunal. Thank you. Over to you, Ankita.
Thank you, Atreya and Abhijit. To download the India Risk Outlook, you can click the link in the chat box. The Outlook will also be emailed to you after the event. But for a more detailed district-wise assessment, you can also purchase the Outlook from us. For more information on that or DataSurfer or to book a demo of the tool, please contact my colleague Kunal Solanki. His contact details are available in the chat box. Please feel free to get in touch. With that, we move on to the second panel discussion of the day. The second panel discussion of the day is on trends in Intel security and loss prevention, chaired by a renowned orator who needs no introduction, Manoj Singh, Director Risk Consulting, MitKat Advisory. Over to you, Mr. Singh.
Thank you, Nikita, for your introduction. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and a very happy new year once again. And special thanks to our vibrant audience for your continued presence in the event. It is really exciting to see the numbers. We still have 400 plus people on the listening to this panel. So in the second panel of today, we are going to discuss trends in Intel security and loss prevention. As General Sharma mentioned in his opening remarks, I'll repeat a few of the phrases that the point of historical inflection, the time of transition from rule-based order to a force-based order, and hence the reduced predictability in the environment. And what we just heard from panel one in India Risk Outlook discussion today, it is evident that organizations are operating in an environment shaped by geopolitical uncertainty, dynamic economic ups and downs. And what this tells us is that risks today rarely appear in isolation. A geopolitical development at one place quickly becomes an operational issue. A cyber incident spills into physical disruption. A people-related lapse turns into a reputational or regulatory challenge. And in such an environment, organizations can no longer afford standalone functions. They are increasingly getting integrated together to protect people, assets, operations, and reputation. And the major challenge they face is how to anticipate risk, how to tailor the response, how to make the response faster and appropriate. And with that focus being of this topic, I would like to mention that we are fortunate to have a diverse panel today representing financial services, manufacturing sector, infrastructure, education, and consumer goods. Without much ado, I will now take the opportunity to introduce my esteemed panelists and a panel of experts. We have Om Prakash Shengare, Director, Global Security, Fidelity Investments. Om Prakash is a Reliance Global Security Services first batch Academy alumnus with 28 years of expertise in corporate security and security operations management. He currently serves as Director of Global Security at Fidelity Investment, Bengaluru office, and has worked in leadership positions on professional forums like ACES Bengaluru chapter as Secretary, co-chaired the OSAC Bengaluru Council, and now contributes extensively as a steering committee member. He is committed to supporting the security professionals community through active involvement in industry platforms. Hello, Om Prakash. Warm welcome to you.
Thank you, Manoj, for the wonderful introduction, and pleasure to be here on this panel today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We have Lieutenant Colonel Ajaydeep Singh, Country Security Manager, Michelin. May I request Ajaydeep? Yes, thank you. So he's a retired colonel of Indian Army with over 25 years of distinguished service. He brings deep operational and leadership experiences as a combat helicopter pilot, artillery commander, officer training, and military police investigator. He currently serves as Country Security Manager at Michelin India, where he is responsible for enterprise security, risk management, and operational resilience. In this role, he supports business continuity, crisis preparedness, and security governance in complex multinational corporate environment. Hello, Ajaydeep. Warm welcome to you. Then we have Ian Finlay, Regional Security Manager, Europe, Middle East, and Africa, Black & Veatch, a veteran of South African Army and the British Army. Ian has served across the world in most of its troubled spots in his military career and thereafter in his corporate role as well. He was one of the few expats who have been posted at India as a security leader for an MNC and has lived long in India and hence on this forum today with a lot of experiences. But today he joins us from UK on a snowy winter morning and probably at 6 a.m. And we really deeply appreciate that, Ian. Hello, Ian. Warm welcome to you.
Good morning and hello to the new and familiar faces. Hello.
Thank you. Thank you. Then we have Rahul Bharati, Head of Operations, the British School, New Delhi. Rahul Bharti is a seasoned operations, administration, and security professional with experience spanning education, corporate services, security consulting, and the Indian Army. He currently serves as head of operations at British School, New Delhi, where he oversees end-to-end operation management, infrastructure, safety, compliance, and administrative functions. He's also been a senior security consultant with Mahindra Special Services Group and has been advising clients on security risk management, assessments, and mitigation strategies. Hello, Rahul. Warm welcome to you.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, everyone. Thank you.
So getting on our subject of discussion today, our discussion on this topic, trends in intel security and loss prevention, will follow a very simple structure. We'll first try and understand from our experts about what has fundamentally changed over the years that we are discussing this today. And thereafter, we move on in second round to understanding what are those specific emerging trends. And finally, we'll conclude with what the future holds for us and for the leaders and the professionals. So turning to Om Prakash for my first question. Om Prakash, what has fundamentally changed in intelligence, security, and loss prevention over the last few years? And what has driven those changes? Over to you.
Sure, Manoj. And hello, everyone. And thank you, MitKat team, for this opportunity. I think we are just lowering down ourselves from 50,000 feet to 10,000 or 5,000 feet closer to our business, basically, now with this particular panel. So particularly, this topic is very futuristic and should be interesting for many. So just coming back to the question, if I had to talk about most significant changes in this domain, then I should start with giving little context to it. Traditionally, securing of assets, be it people, territories, or high-value resources, is going on since ancient ages. So we have heard or read that they used to secure their assets using environmental designs. Today, we call it CPTD. With changing time and ecosystem, we have evolved to gates, guns, guards, and then continued further evolving to integration of technology. So today, we all know the corporate security has broadened their landscape. Ground had shifted and evolving fast with new vectors such as generative AI, machine learnings, then Internet of Things, advanced sensors, cloud-based systems, biometrics, and so on and so forth. But as per my analysis, most meaningful change seen in these domains is data-driven strategies or the intelligence. So, which is again amplifying through integration of advanced technologies like AI and such autonomous tools. In addition to this, especially after this COVID era, most leading organizations are moving towards unified security models where intelligence, physical security, and digital defenses are interconnected, basically. So this era also taught us for having a better collaboration and convergence with our stakeholders, which is definitely offering better business enablement through the more holistic security strategies we are able to build through unified views or the better collaboration with them, shared resolutions and situational awareness and all that. So if I had to talk about like what is driving this change, then definitely I can say that the convergence of this autonomous technologies and collaborative approaches are shifting these domains from reactive model to proactive and to predictive ecosystem again. So for example, in earlier times, or few years before, SOCs were majorly dependent on open source intel. But again, authentication and completeness of that intel was always a question, and therefore they used to struggle for producing with real-time intel. However, with the help of the AI, like autonomous tools, it is quite easy for our analysts to process substantially large number of data and produce faster and quicker authenticated, comprehensive, continual, timely intel to share with our leadership and stakeholders so that they can take informed decisions. And we just heard data server predictive data dashboard again, like which predicts so many things, right? So if I had to tell about or the quantify what kind of efforts and time invested by these analysts based on my interactions with some analysts. So it could be monthly minimum thousands of disruptive events they monitor, but out of which only 5% of them are generally find it potentially potential to disrupt our businesses. And further to it, it's less than 1% of those events gets escalated to next level where pre-assessment calls or initiated or BCP is invoked. So
Right.
Yeah.
Because I picked up two things. I'll come back to you on
Okay.
on those specific examples that we are experiencing, which you're trying to explain now. We'll definitely come back to this. So the most meaningful change that you mentioned, experiencing data-driven strategy, convergence of autonomous technology systems, and a very important phrase, shift from reactive to predictive strategies.
Yes.
And we'll get back to this. And I'll now move on to Ajaydeep. So Ajaydeep, in your views, what fundamentally feels different today in security and loss prevention, especially, let's say, from the manufacturing sector perspective, supply chain perspective, logistic perspective? Yeah, over to you. You're on mute, Ajaydeep. Ajaydeep, you're on mute.
My bad.
Yes.
My bad.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Manoj, as per me, security, and I'm sure a lot of you will agree, isn't about preventing loss. It's about protecting the organization's license to operate, to compete, and grow in a globally connected risk environment. A few years ago, manufacturing industrial environment security was largely defined by physical protection, keeping people out, preventing theft, such kind of responding to incidents after they happen. Today, that model simply doesn't hold good. Firstly, the line between physical and cybersecurity has absolutely disappeared. Every badge reader, every camera or access panel is now a connected device. A door left insecure is no longer just a physical vulnerability. It can be the first step in a cyber or an operational disruption. So security teams are actually now protecting systems and processes, not just facilities. That's the first thing which I would like to bring out. Secondly, insider risk looks very different today. We are dealing with a higher workforce turnover, right? The more number of contractors, more remote access into critical environments. Now, the risk here is not just somebody walking out with material. It's the loss of probably intellectual property, some process knowledge, or sensitive data. So that requires a much more behavioral and analytical approach to loss prevention than what we used to have initially. Right. Third, the consequences of failure are much greater. Lean manufacturing, fragile global supply chains. That means that even a relatively small incident, which earlier could pass by, today it can shut down production. It can delay customers worldwide or trigger some kind of a regulatory scrutiny. Right. So today, a local business problem, a local security issue, which was earlier just localized, is now a global business problem. Also, fourthly, the threat actors have changed. We are no longer dealing only with opportunistic theft. We see organized criminal groups, sophisticated cargo thefts in some sectors, intellectual property and critical infrastructure difference of opinions. These are very patient, very well-resourced adversaries. It's not something which is just happening on whims and fancies, right? And fifth, obviously, expectations have shifted at the executive and at the board level as well. So security is expected to be more data-driven, more predictive, more measurable. Right.
So,
Leaders want real-time visibility and proof that their security investments are actually protect the operational resilience and the brand value. So what feels different today is that, in a nutshell, the security and loss prevention have moved from the background to the strategic core of the industrial organizations. And this shift, I think, is a permanent shift here.
thank you. Thank you, Ajaydeep, for that contextual analysis of the reality of the situation. So, very, very pertinent 5 to 6 points brought out, and we'll revisit them again when we look at the trends and what the future holds for us. Now, I'll turn to Ian for your views and from your global perspective about this, your views about what has changed fundamentally.
Thank you very much. I'm
Yes.
seeing two big changes. The first one is the numbers of people interested in the subject and now starting to take it seriously. So I'm just having a look at the numbers of people that we have participants on this call. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I saw you pointing to your ear and I thought, oh no, am I on mute for a second? Yes, the number of participants is growing. And that's not just for Mars 2026. Conferences that I attend, I see more and more people attending conferences. This means that people are now starting to take it more seriously. Organizations like ASIS, the Security Institute, OSAC, they're starting to grow in numbers too. So that means that this is definitely a trend that we are seeing an increase of. If you compare the security industry of 10 years ago, it was an unnecessary bolt on that directors of and board members of companies felt that they were obliged to now start to hire people in security. The other massive leap in the industry that I've seen is the augmentation of technology. So Black & Veatch, we deal with massive infrastructure, power stations, power transmission, oil and gas, telecommunications, water infrastructure. And now we have the augmentation of take smart cameras, for example. Those cameras are able to provide a very thorough security perspective, but now they're also able to dovetail beautifully with health and safety. So this is where AI now starts to really creep in beautifully with security, in that it can prevent somebody who's not authorized to come onto site to be able to alert a human to say a person in this area geolocated in your footprint is not authorized to be on site, or a person who is authorized on site is now approaching an area of danger. So take an excavation on a construction site where a big pit is being dug. And if somebody is not allowed to be in that area, the AI can now take the biometrics of the person's face and tether that to a message and say this person is not allowed in this area. It also gives us a wonderful ability to be able to monitor lone working. That then halves our costs because instead of sending 2 people to a job site, we can now send 1 person to a job site, but we know that person is looked after because a control room is able to monitor their movements, and that person has a greater chance of getting assistance in a timely manner if and when they need it. And then with all of the projects that we build, we also send people overseas, and but not just overseas, the domestic travel, being able to steer them away from trouble or bring them assistance when that call is made.
Right. Thank you, Ian. So very well mentioned that the organizations are taking it more seriously. The way you mentioned that in several forums, in ASIS and other forums, you're seeing a lot of discussions happening on these topics, and how AI, especially your perspective about the infrastructure and projects industry, how the AI is monitoring both the aspects of security, access control, and safety. which is integrated into one system. Wonderful. Moving on to Rahul. So Rahul, what changes have you experienced, or are the institutions experiencing, primarily which are largely people centric? So your perspective, please.
Right. Like you said, sir, initially, I think when you're working in a school, I think you stop thinking of security as a standalone function pretty quickly, right? Because at the end of the day, we are not just protecting assets, infrastructure. We're responsible for children, teachers, families who place an enormous amount of trust in us. Just a couple of quick examples. It's a normal school morning. A parent notices something outside the campus, nothing dramatic, I think nothing obviously threatening, right? And they mention it in a WhatsApp group. Every school has these WhatsApp groups now. The message gets forwarded, someone adds a bit of interpretation, someone else adds urgency. And by the time we as school leadership even hear about the question, it's no longer, is there actually a risk? It's already become, why hasn't the school said anything yet? And what's interesting is that I think from a physical security point of view, everything was just fine. The gates were secure, your guards are in place, no breaches. But the situation was already escalating, not because of physical risk, but because of perception. And I think that's what's really changed. Maybe 5 or 6 years ago, physical security felt like the answer. Today, it's the baseline. I think it's expected. And the challenge is that risk now moves, especially say I'm going to limit myself to an educational institution. So risk moves faster than fences right now. In a school, a teacher notices a small behavioral change in a student, nothing alarming, just a sense that something isn't quite right. They hesitate. They don't want to overreact. They don't want to get it wrong. And when the concern finally does reach the leadership, again, the question isn't, did anyone notice? It's why didn't we act earlier? So not a system failure, not a policy gap. It's just human hesitation. And I think in schools, and my esteemed panelists here who come from diverse sectors, the earliest warning signs are almost always human. I think what's important to mention is that I'm not looking at all this through a security lens. It's complete operation for a school. So every security decision that we are making has a ripple effect. A delay affects learning, a poorly worded message affects trust, an operational call affects students' well-being, which means security cannot sit in isolation anymore. So it has to be woven into the institution function. And add to this, we've been talking about it in other panels. International schools today sit at the crossroads of global events, social tensions, very high stakeholder expectations. And I think what happens far away shows up emotionally inside the campus the next morning. So security teams, I think, are no longer just managing gates, guards. They're managing judgment, communications, credibility. And I think that's the real shift, The question institutions today are asking that it's not just, are we secure? It's, do people trust how we think and respond when things are unclear? I think that's the major shift in my experience.
Thank you, Rahul. You making a very, very important point on the perception management. Even before a risk, precipitates in its actual form, or if it may not, but the perception of that risk goes far beyond, and very, it gets spiraled on social media, WhatsApp group, the way you mentioned, and how people perceive it. And that may become a bigger risk than the risk itself, actually. So very, very important point you made. And what is emerging from what we heard in our first round of questions and the answers from all the speakers, that the risks are interconnected, people-centric, faster moving. Intelligence is no longer optional. It is a necessity. And security is increasingly becoming business critical. So as we all organizations strive to adapt to this situation, what are the emerging trends that we see around? How are we coping up? How are organizations evolving to this new paradigm, and how are they coping up? So let's have a second round of views from everyone. I request about 2 minutes from each speaker. that what are the emerging trends in intelligence gathering, analysis, and decision making? How are they conversing on physical security, cyber, people risk, and business risk? And I again start with Om Prakash. So, how do you see these emerging trends in the domain of intelligence, security, and the convergence of all of these? Over to you, Om Prakash.
Okay, just, I mean, again, there is emerging threat is, I can see one of the complex thing is insider threat again. So because especially after COVID era, this dynamic working is new normal now, isn't it? So the tools and assumptions designed for an office centric world don't translate to the workforce spread across the functions, the homes basically, or using personal devices and network outside of organizational controls, right? So in addition to that, the visibility is again getting thinner, and the behaviors and the once triggered alerts, now they are blur into the routine activities basically. So we can't identify basically from those behaviors specifically. At the same time, the growing trends of individuals holding multiple roles or side projects and all that, it's called again a polywork, which is reshaping further. And when this outside overlaps with customer data or intellectual property, risk for exposure will definitely grow. And so the insider threat program, it must evolve from traditional perimeter-based detection models into intellectual-led modules specifically, and risk strategies to be designed for a remote and dynamic workforce. This requires a fundamental shift as on today, where across technology, policies, and processes needs to be reviewed and changed basis on today's requirement and the change. Back to you, Manav.
Right. Thank you. So moving on to Ajaydeep on the same question, how are organizations evolving to cope up with this situation? What trends are we seeing? How are we adopting to, or changing our ways to adopt to mitigate the risks that we are facing?
So Manoj, what's surprising is that this is what I have seen in my little bit of experience, that it's not the changing volume of incidents. It's how the risk is forming up today within the organization, right? Most of the losses don't start with a clear breach or a bad decision. They start up with very small, reasonable choices, like access not being reviewed, or workarounds are under pressure, as Ayan had also mentioned, third-party roles that are slowly expanding, and again, it's difficult to keep a check on what exactly are they performing. Over times, these conditions compound, and when something finally happens, the risk we realize has actually been present for a longer time than what we actually knew. Right. So also, I would like to said about insider risk, that also has evolved. Definitely, I agree with him. In many cases, it's less about more about complexity and speed. People are operating in a highly connected environment, and the controls are often lagging behind. I've seen a few cases now that people are actually in a hurry to get around and finish off their job, whereas if they go by their usual procedures or follow the SOPs, it's going to take a longer time. So organizations making progress are focusing on alignment, but we still need to ensure that the process and accountability still makes sense when it comes to the internal threats. And similarly for external, it's the same thing as was brought out earlier. We have a lot of work to do on our external threats as well. There is these threats, as I said in my previous answer, they are more patient, they are more deliberate, they have much more resources. So industrial espionage today relies greatly on trust and legitimate access rather than force, which was earlier one of the key ways to go about it. And even though we have more security data than ever, somewhere along the line, clarity of that data is diminishing. And that is what is actually, the real shift is more from collecting of information to exercising the judgment about the signals which actually matter, the early warning signals, or the battle indicators, as we used to say in the army, right? From a leadership standpoint, security is definitely becoming an early warning function for operational risk, rather than more for reducing surprises rather than explaining them, after the fact.
Thank you. Thank you. So very pertinent points. Focused intelligence, what we say early battle indicators, and working on them, following them up. And you mentioned that a lot of work still remains to be done about integrating the processes and systems. And we have been, the two speakers have touched upon insider threat and industrial espionage, very, very important topics. So I'll move on to Ian for your views on what organizations are doing to cope up and what trends are we seeing globally.
I'll start with trends that we're seeing is all of our adversaries and potential adversaries are now taking notes of what potential targets could be. So whilst we see the evolution of technology being a very substantial battle space, so traditional battle spaces are land, sea, air, and now cyber. We're seeing people taking note of where fiber optic cables go into a site. What can I do to disrupt the site? Most of our big projects are their control rooms are completely dependent on a purely digital mechanism for controlling it. So power stations, for example, they are very vulnerable to internet blackout. So how do you build in resilience to those types of establishments? There's also a very strong link between ideology, criminality, and potential other state actors. I'll use the example of Palestine Action. They're an ideological group. They recently conducted an attack on RAF Bryce Norton, where their ideology said, the RAF are bombing innocent people in Gaza, and therefore they went and vandalized a number of aircraft at Bryce Norton, causing millions of damage. Now that group is now also tethered with other sister or brother branches who are located all over the UK, who have been gone and attacked some of the defense industry. So organizations like Thales and BAE Systems and Elbit Systems, they've been attacked by the same people, saying that they are providing weapons to efforts that they the ideologist exists, support at least. With a group that then goes and attacks or protests, you have elements of a foreign government in there taking note of what they're doing, how they're doing. So linking that back to combat indicators or battle indicators, yeah, absolutely. So the counterintelligence of that is we seeing who's arriving at what sites, taking note of who they are, where they pop up frequently, and therefore handing that information to the authorities, sharing that information with organizations like the counter-terror police, so that there is a documented link of potential attack.
Right. Thank you, Ian, for those views. Very important point. Technology as a battle space of creating disruption, and how should we build resilience? You touched upon ideology as a potential threat. and counterintelligence as one of the important means of mitigating these risks. So very, very pertinent points. Moving to Rahul. Rahul, what are the trends that you see in the institutions, organizations that they are trying to adopt or evolve to counter these threats and to cope up with the evolving security risks?
So I think Om Prakash sir did touch upon this, but I think one of the biggest trends that I see, at least in the education sector, is convergence, right? And I think in the education sector, this is no longer just optional. In a school environment, physical security, safeguarding, cyber risks, HR, communications simply cannot operate in silos anymore. A data issue quickly becomes a child protection issue, a staff concern becomes a reputational issue, safeguarding incident can become like a leadership issue. So, for instance, if a school detects, and these are practical challenges that, unusual login activity on a staff account, and from an IT perspective, it looks like a routine cyber issue, right? But when the team looks closer, they realize that the account had access to sensitive student information. And now the conversation shifts immediately from IT to safeguarding, to legal, to leadership, to communication. And the real risk, I think it's not just, it's not the breach. It's who knew, how fast they acted, how responsibly we've handled it. And I think that's convergence in practice. Especially in an educational institution, I think another thing is that reputation and security are very closely linked, right? Often the lasting impact of an incident isn't the incident itself. It's how quickly leadership responded, how transparently they communicated, and whether their actions felt balanced and human. I think the intelligence and security in schools are no longer just operational concerns, they become leadership concerns. And security in education now, I think, is moving away from control and towards judgment, away from reacting to incidents and towards anticipating anxiety.
Right.
And I think that's where we need to focus.
So yeah, you did touch upon the aspect of perception management, and what you're mentioning that rather than being reactive, to be preemptively prepared to handle a risk before it spirals into negative perception management. And reputational risk is very important for organizations, what you're mentioning, and for all businesses, it is very, very important. So what is emerging across the sectors that there is convergence of technology and governance, and that needs an integrated approach. There is a very, very important aspect of intelligence-led decision making and a shift from reactive to predictive security. So with that in mind, if we move to our last round of views from all the speakers, I'll request about 1 to 2 minutes about a closing remark as to how do you think that in future what it holds for us. What is one practical change which you would visualize that the organization should make today, or one capability that they must build and acquire today to handle the future aspects of this? Again, starting in the same sequence with Om Prakash. So let's say, what one practical change organizations must adopt today to be future ready?
Okay, so I'm just a cue from Rahul's point, that is perception management. So, today this is like definitely seen as a perceived risk, specifically, I will call here, that our leaders, they have access to all kind of information floating on the open sources, social media, everywhere, WhatsApp specifically. So, and I'm not sure that information what they are receiving is authentic as well as it is relevant or not. But they will start raising alarms prematurely, which is a practical difficulty as on today we all the SMEs are facing. So which is totally an unexpected situation. And so it becomes important for SMEs now to take a control in their hands and make them understand that we are there, we are subject matter experts, we will definitely take care of this. So just trust on us. That is one thing as a SMEs. And on the organizational point of view, another fact is in corporate security domain, we have so many touch points where which are generating a lot of data around the clock. And generally, we are sitting on enormous amount of data. And today, the challenge is no longer how to collect data, but how to use it correctly. That's the biggest challenge as in today. So the future of corporate security belongs to the organization that turn information into intelligence and act on it with discipline and speed. So to conclude, today's utmost need of security professionals is being more proactive and predictive, interconnected, and have data-driven strategy. Thank you, Manoj.
Thank you, Prakash. So mentioning about moving from information to intelligence, to prioritize authenticity of information and to be predictive, it resonates to a large extent to our data surfer demo. I'm very happy to hear that. And so moving on to Ajaydeep. So what should leaders prioritize today to be future ready, Ajaydeep?
Simply putting it, leaders should prioritize focus. Protect what truly matters to the business. Stop spreading, your security effort too thin. The long-term differentiator based on, predictive analysis like patterns which organizations like MitKat help us in, deciphering and help us in coming up with a quicker response time. So the long-term differentiator is going to be sound judgment, acting early within that VUCA environment with incomplete information. That sound judgment is what leaders should prioritize. So you need to have your focus correct. You need to build in zero trust systems and make sure that when you make a judgment, it's absolutely sound. That's in very simple words.
Thank you for that prioritized focus, not to dissipate energy over everything, but to have a focused approach. Great. So turning over to Ian. So what should organizations do differently now? And what capabilities will be critical for the future? Your views.
Yeah, I think our bosses are interested in share price, profit, loss, and how they're going to future-proof themselves. So if you can use those points as a way of building your credibility, because they're going to look at you and think, well, what recommendations is Ian giving and why? And if you can factor in why it will affect the business, how it will affect the business, how it will affect our customer relationships, how will it affect our profit share price, then we can use that as leverage in order to drive our change in some cases, understanding in other cases, and credibility in many other cases. A former boss of mine said, never ever let your boss walk into an ambush. So the information and work that you're doing on a daily basis, you are gathering that information to be able to prevent your boss and your colleagues from walking into an ambush. So whether that be taking a bit more time to do a thorough site assessment, or taking a bit more time to look at someone's travel, or maybe there's something in the peripheral. The CEO is going on holiday somewhere with his family. Well, if something happens to that family, what happens to the share price? So I guess it's like a spider's web. You sat in the center of the spider's web. There are all of these influences that then branch out. How do you link it all together to be able to give a healthy security perspective and support to your professionals?
Thank you. So that means organizations need to have detailed insights, brainstorming, deliberate on every small aspect, and understand how it is affecting the businesses, the partners, the customers, and everyone. Great. So last but not least, Rahul, your closing remarks on the same issue.
Right.
How do you see the future? Yeah.
I think the other panelists have already covered it. I think, again, in education, I don't think security incidents or security perceptions will not be measured by absence of incidents, right? There'll always be incidents. It'll be measured by whether people say, I may not agree with every decision, but I trust how the school has handled it. If it, in education, intelligence and security are no longer about having the strongest systems, the strongest policies. They're about whether people trust your judgment when things are unclear. They'll always be unclear. You'll not have a clear picture at every given point in time. And what will matter is, I think, whether leaders create environments where concerns are raised early, decisions are made thoughtfully, and communication feels human and credible. I think we do not promise zero risk, but those that consistently demonstrate calm, care, I think, and clarity is where it matters the most moving forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Rahul. So as we conclude, the few messages that very clearly stand out, and I've made some of the notes of that, is that intelligence has moved to the center of security and risk management. The convergence across physical, digital, people domain is becoming a necessity, inescapable necessity. Loss prevention today is more about protecting value, trust, continuity, and protecting reputation. And the future will demand security leaders who can connect intelligence to larger strategy, technology to judgment, and protection to business outcomes. So thank you, dear panelists. We had a great discussion and a lot of insights, and I'm sure our audience have benefited immensely from that. And thank you for your insights, and thank you to the audience for being part of this discussion. And with this, we conclude this panel, and I hand over back to Nikita. Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure is ours.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Singh, and thank you to the panelists. It is always such a pleasure to listen to such eminent speakers. Incredibly relevant topics covered so smoothly and in depth. And the enthusiasm we have received from our audience has truly made the session impactful and memorable. With that, we will move on to the third and final panel discussion of the day. Now, this panel discussion dwells on technology, a topic without which we cannot do justice to risk and resilience in 2026. Please join me in welcoming our visionary leader and moderator, Pawan Desai, CEO and co-founder, MitKat Advisory. Over to you, Mr. Desai.
Thank you very much, Ankita. It's amazing. I'll just request all the panelists to just switch on the camera. Sumit, Adiraj, and Shantanu, please. Great. So I'm at a loss of word because I am doing this third panel for fifth year in a row for Mars, and every time I have to say, sorry, we have been short on time because we are running late. Today we are not running late. We are 5 minutes ahead of the time. So I think that's so I didn't know how to. I'm used to starting the discussion with that statement. So the great work done by the panelists, earlier panels, and amazing insights from Jalil Sharma has set the tone very, very correctly, very, very aptly. And we are going to talk more about the buzzword of technology, AI integration, and what kind of opportunities, what kind of risks are there. So it says data, it is like oil and all those things. I feel technology is like oxygen. It is invisible in some sense because it is lying in everything, the way we are thinking, doing, and managing things. It is essential, invisible, and it can become explosive also at some point of time. So that is what we are going to discuss. How do we manage those kind of risks? To the entire technology aspects, we can look into three different buckets. One is from a cybersecurity perspective, one is from the AI adoption perspective, and third from the physical security perspective. They are not different, but we'll have to intertwine these three different because the people who are these three are looking from a very different lenses. So just to put perspective in place, I think cybersecurity, no debate. Everybody has spoken about the amazing growth in cybersecurity segment, which is happening currently. It is around 200 plus billion dollar market, which is there, which is going to become almost 4 trillion by 2027. That is the kind of growth this market is seeing. In last decade, it has grown tremendously. AI adoptions, there are maybe multiple, what you said, it's like an elephant. Everybody is seeing it very differently. Some are loving it, some are hating it, some are sitting on the fence, but adoption is moving very, very fast. And I see adoption of any technology, once the user or end user start adopting it, the adoption is always much faster and much more sustainable. And if I see physical security from a different lens, it's almost $130 billion market in currently in 2025, and is going to go to almost 200 billion market in next 2 to 3 years time. So again, a very, very fast growing area. And so technology is going to be sort of a double-edged sword, having opportunities as well as threats along with that, but we do not have a choice. So I think one of the physical security global leader told me that yes, AI adoption in physical security is like having a smart fridge where you can know when to fill the milk or when to replenish the milk. But if your kid is going to eat a drink out of carton, that is the behavioral change which you cannot change. That is the challenge which professionals like us will have to manage, and that is where the whole crux of this whole adoption will lie. So without further ado, I just like to I'm super related with the kind of panel what we have today. Starting with no particular order with Sumit, currently the Chief Security Officer of Capgemini India. Thank you, Sumit, for joining this panel. With over 20 years of experience, he drives the security strategy and governance across India. He he has spent leadership roles at Capgemini India, Colt, Alliance Technology, TCS, and brigadier officer in Indian Army. Shantanu, if you don't know Shantanu in security industry, you are at fault. He is not at fault at all, which is there, right? So he's the managing director at Pinkerton, with 2 decades of experience in risk management. Again, a very, very tall leader in our space of security management. Ashish sir, I think again very, very well known. Thank you for the work which you are, other than the job which pays you money, the kind of work you are doing for ACES and the leadership in India. I think it's phenomenal, sir. I think really, really appreciated on that. Currently, he's the global program manager at Intuit. He's looking after governance, risk, and compliance with almost 3.5 decades of experience. With almost 2 decades of stint in army and other leadership roles. I can go on and on about the achievements. Adiraj Banerjee, again, the maybe odd man out in all respects, which is there. But very, very essential is again a guy which I mentioned about the oxygen, which is not visible, not known, but very, very essential if we have to transform the security industry per se. Expert on technology and entrepreneurships, alumni of IIT and IIM, brings deep insights on how security can be looked from a very, very different lens, because all of us have a very colored and one way of looking at it. He comes from a very, very different lens of looking at it. Just to set the context right, we are going to have a sort of a flow of discussion, not in any particular order, but just to set the context right. Is there to start with? Maybe I'll start first with Sumit on this thing, just to get uh, the perspective and your view on this thing, because from a global uh, organization standpoint, the technology trends are having huge impact, because every new KRA or new, when you put your KPIs in place, everybody's talking about how are you making technology adoption as a centerpiece of adoption, and what are we doing. What do you see? Are we underdoing, overdoing in anything? And what do you see the challenges lies in that? Because they are going to be common across the board. And how do we manage those initiatives? Because you cannot handle 100 things at a time. So what will be the top priority items on this?
Thank you, Pawan sir. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are loud and clear.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak among security thought leaders at Mars in this year. Every time Colonel Sam has complained to this panel, which is on tech, that tech guys end up discussing everything other than tech, and non-tech guys discuss everything which is tech. So I hope, Pawan, you have some plans to change that this time, and we will give you all our support.
I can only ask right questions. Answers has to be same.
Okay. So coming to your question, global enterprise security landscape has shifted from a defensive posture to one of an autonomous resilience. For a global organization, that most significant technology trends are no longer just about, say, preventing, but about managing the complex machine speed risk of the evolving AI-driven world. I heard Rahul talking about the speed of human perception and his wanting to keep up with the parents and their thinking, but the speed of the machine is much faster. I had earlier identified 8 fundamental innovations driving this trend, Pavan. It is in my LinkedIn security mission. I also wrote some security missions related to it. It is on the LinkedIn. It is on an article which I published on 5th of January. The title of the article is Securing the New Tech Race. So there you get more details. However, for the purpose of our discussion today, I will pick up 5 key technology trends that are fundamentally altering enterprise security strategies in 2026. The first one which I want to pick up is multi-agent systems, or what I also like to call as agentic orchestration in security. The rise of agentic AI, everybody has talked about it. Autonomous systems that can plan, act, and learn is one of the most disruptive forces, if you ask me, in 2026. So what is the threat? Attackers now use autonomous agents to conduct hyper-personalization phishing at a massive scale and find vulnerabilities in minutes, which they used to take, weeks and days earlier. Hence, in the emerging security and response trends, enterprises are also deploying AI-native security platforms that use their own defensive agents, which they can trust, to monitor internal traffic, sandbox the rogue models, and perform autonomous red teaming and continuously try to stay ahead of the adversaries. The second trend is quantum cryptography readiness. Now, a lot of you will think why I have picked this up when you don't even have a cryptographically relevant, viable machine in the market. It's very important for us to understand this because quantum computers are still not there. They are still at the horizon, but the harvest now and decrypt later risk has reached a tipping point for the global enterprise. And why this is happening is because it is being thought that today in the world, 70% of the data is almost synthetic, which means it's repetitive data. There's no new data getting created. So before it becomes 90%, the real intellectual data has to be harvested and kept so that it can be decrypted later when your quantum systems are in place. So what is the threat? Data with a long shelf life, such as your intellectual property, which you're going to launch, say, 7 years ahead as a product, health records, government secrets. These are being stolen now to be decrypted later. So the strategy which leading organizations are adopting is crypto agility. This involves mapping every cryptographic dependency across global networks and transitioning to a NIST standardized quantum resistant algorithm, which we all know about, only for the high value data at this point of time. The third one is linked with physical security as well as your virtual security, which is your identity first security. With deepfakes capable of bypassing traditional biometric and voice-based multi-factor authentication, identity has become the primary attack surface now, especially for high-value targets like your CXOs who matter, whose word can bring down the stock for the company. So what has shifted? Global enterprises are moving towards a continuous authentication using behavioral biometrics. So basically typing patterns, mouse movements, the way I talk, and device posture checks that happen every few seconds, not just at logins as it used to happen earlier. So enterprises are also implementing frameworks to verify the origin of digital content, watermarking, attestation, to ensure that the video calls or a signed document is truly from a human executive and not synthetic AI. I just want to take this example. Our this whole event, March 2026, is fully digital. Just imagine the time you release it, it has a new version where the same guys are talking, but they are talking exactly the opposite strategy of what your strategy is, and what will be the advantage to your adversary in the market once it is online. The fourth one is confidential computing and privacy. Somebody talked about privacy in the first panel also. I'm just adding on to it. As AI models require massive amount of data, the risk of data leakage during processing has increased. So the technology in trend is confidential computing using hardware-based trusted execution environments, what is also called in the market as TEs, to encrypt data while it is being used in memory only, right? So at strategic level, this allows global enterprise to collaborate on sensitive data sets such as health records, finance records, and so on, and use third-party AI models without ever exposing the underlying raw data of the organization to the cloud. And I'm sure, Pawan, you would have experienced it when we want to collaborate with you. We don't want to give you our data, but only we want to use your engine while the data stays with us. And the fifth one, but it's not the least one, I think somebody else also talked about it. Is entity and enterprise exposure management. So the traditional scan and patch cycle is dead. This is known to us. In 2026, the gap between vulnerability being discovered and it being weaponized has really shrunk nearly to zero, because it's not about discovering anymore. It is with a plan which has been made by AI of how to execute it as well, right? So the trend is moving from a reactive detection to a continuous exposure management, which another panelist also talked about. The strategy is security teams use AI to predict which assets are most likely to be targeted based on the global threat intelligence, which can be enhanced further. I still feel, and I call it risk int, or risk and intelligence put together, and automatically harden those exposed zones before an attack even begins, right? So in summary, for CSOs and CISO community, I think my 5 are predictive defense, continuous behavioral identity, agentic orchestration, confidential computing, and the last and the most important, entity exposure management. I take a pause here. Back to you, Pawan sir.
I think I have not heard these kind of technology insights in any of the physical security forums. I've traveled globally. I can assure you this is one of the best summaries I've ever heard about how physical security is, or a security landscape is changed. I could see Adiraj smiling in between, because a lot of things which you mentioned, he has been talking about for last 5, 6 years. And every time he says, am I why people do not understand when I'm talking? I think you were just ahead of the time. I think Dheeraj, that was the only thing, and now people are talking, and it is, I think, music to my ears what Sumit you said, and it's super brilliant what you have been what amazing insights which you have given. I'll just move the focus to Ashish sir. Sir, lot of things are happening, and it is at a speed it is unprecedented. Things are happening. I'll put a more of a geographical angle, because you are handling global role in that thing. Every region, every part of the world thinks differently. Their adoption on technology as a different wavelength. It is a different kind of a thing. What is your experience being when you, as a global organization like yours, and this thing, when you want to adopt at the speed at which it is needed? Are we finding a sort of a discomfort because of the geographical mismatch? Because technology is easy to implement, but adoption is a very different, or acceptance is a very different phenomenon. So what's your experience and what's your advice?
Thanks for the question, Pawan, and Happy New Year to everybody on the panel as well as watching this. Always a pleasure to be part of Mars, and I would, before I dwell into the question, I would just like to compliment Sumit, as you did. Very well summarized of everything that is happening across the security domain in the current environment of technology that we are privileged to be in. I think our generation is the one which is looking at technology moving at such a breakneck speed that no generation has ever seen before. I'm sure generations later will watch probably greater speed. But let me just talk about, the opportunities are immense, unprecedented, and so are the existential risks which are going to be coming up along with it. The risks have fundamentally changed, like Sumit just mentioned. It's the risk of, earlier it used to be the risk of falling behind, that you're not good enough in terms of speed to adapt technology or adopt technology. But now the risk from an operational perspective for an organization is the operational fragility. Now, the danger that comes is from moving too fast with systems that are autonomous and complex. It is an uncharted territory. So, we got to be really, really agile. While we need to move with speed, we have to make sure that we have the guardrails required. Now, as an organization, in my company, we are looking at agentic workflow. You're looking at autonomous, absolutely customer problems, which are being solved in an autonomous manner across multiple software platforms without human intervention. That is the level at which, or that is the stage where we need to reach. And Sumit did speak about hyper personalization. And what at Intuit we are calling it is AI plus HI, which is the AI chemistry, if you want to call that, but artificial intelligence and human intelligence. The human intervention is a must and has to be present to make sure that hallucinations and various other corruptions that can occur when you are solely committing yourself to AI, do not end up taking the solutioning that you are trying to do should remain accurate, is the outcome that you want. Also, quantum computing we did speak about earlier, but there is absolutely early evidence which is now available in some sectors. You can talk about molecular modeling, for example. The fast mover advantage of whichever organization gets into utilizing quantum computer as quickly as possible is going to be having a advantage of early adopters and winner takes it all kind of a concept, right? Now, going back to your question, as an organization, we are right now faced with a dilemma of how to create a AI governance within our organization, because we are looking at different geographies. Every country is on a journey of its own to figure out what the laws and regulations are going to be. The EU is one of the foremost which has come up with the regulation or even the law, which is going to be actually applicable in 2026, while the US is having a combination of federal plus state laws. In India, we are in a different journey. We have we have, I think we are just about on the verge of classifying the AI risks in the digital AI regulation that we are talking about. So agility in governance, as far as AI is concerned, is the biggest challenge that every organization will have, because you will need to be in compliance with every geography you are operating in. If you are not in compliance, you will be opening up yourself up to vulnerabilities of whatever penalties can be applicable. So I'll pause there and give it back to you.
Thank you. I think amazing. I think takeaway from what Sumit said, the context. I think you have elaborated on the contextual of understanding of that and how things are moving. And I totally agree with that regulations will play a huge role, because a lot of things which we are doing without regulation can flip the entire model on the speed and the agility which we are working on that. And on a more, Shantanu told me at the start of the webinar, if my video goes off for a few seconds, it is not that I don't want to be there, but I'm signing $1 million PO. So he has signed off 2 times. So I'm sure he has already made $2 million for Pinkerton. So congratulations for that. Right. Just continuing that, Shantanu, on a more, I think, on a serious note, I think consulting is unforgivable and thankless domain. I understand it very, very well, which is there. So the demands are never ending. And the speed at which things are changing, the client's demands in terms the way we do investigations, the way we do risk assessments, we do executive, everything is drastically changing. So do you think we are able to evolve into the new normal kind of a thing where everybody wants it? Why should a risk assessment take 2 weeks? Why can't it be done in 2 hours? But I still want all the insights which our team has not been able to find for 20 years. You should be able to find in 2 hours. So how do we handle these kind of things with a balanced approach? And what is your view on the entire thing?
Great, thanks, sir. Jai Hind and good afternoon, everyone, and wish you a happy new year. Thanks, Pawan, sir, and it's an immense pleasure with an honor to be here, and also the risk report that you've done. Luckily, of being the last panelist, what happens is you got time to review the report. So your report really sums up when we talk about technology in terms of the risk and everything that is associated. And I see the transformation that has happened. I have experienced it, as you very rightly said, from the way risk is associated to how we've moved, and we have matured as consultants, whether it is MitKat or Pinkerton or any other company, the way that we've matured. From what in 2023 your report says that we had out of the 6 risks that you have highlighted, there were only 1 that was in high risk on the matrix of impact. There was only 1 which was a high risk category zone. But today in 2026, your report talks about out of the 6, there are 5 who are in the high risk category. So that itself speaks about the kind of risk that we all face in the technology domain. And as you very rightly said, we've got really transformed the landscape, whether it is investigations, whether intelligence gathering. The SAM AI tool that you've showcased today really speaks about how things have changed from what we used to discuss 10 years back to what it is today. Imagine if I am the regional security manager for APAC and I have this SAM AI tool. I just need to give him or her a prompt and all the details come out. I don't need to rely on an analyst to go through the report and make it, but the analyst will just do a quality check and it is up and about to be shared with the higher management. So you very rightly summed up. I think it is data collection and analysis that has really helped us, whether it is consultants, whether it is senior leadership in the security domain, or not even in security domain, whether it is IT, whether it is business leaders, the big data analytics that we've all been exposed to, the collection, the analysis of vast amounts of data from multiple sources, the way that I mean, if once we talk about it, once we're offline, you'll be able to let us know. But not only in the domain that you've exhibited today, but whether it is investigations, it's really helped us. The technologies have created patterns when we recognize, if let's say from a person that was doing when it was very human-centric in good old days when it was about investigation, to today where we go about looking for patterns, we do predictive analysis, we use predictive analysis, and also improving the accuracy to what it was 10 years or 15 years back. And last but not the least, the way you said, the speed of investigations of the risk assessments have really increased from where we used to take, let's say, a 15 days or 20 days. It's a quick turnaround because we get the data, it is all fed into a system, and then it is worked around. In terms of surveillance and monitoring, all of us have experienced from good old days where there were cameras and you had to really I've had, and I'm sure you have visited. I always take their name, Diamond Bors, and if Samir is there on the call, the kind of cameras that these people have, they've always been pioneer. the kind of high resolution cameras that are there in today's time wasn't there. The drones, we are using drones as well, whether it is surveillance, whether it is to, let's say, review a detailed image that has been provided to us through these different sectors or different tools. It really helps us. Facial recognition is something that has really helped, whether it is investigation, whether it is about doing research, when we do risk assessments or security reviews or security designs. It really helps us quickly and efficiently support not only the security operations, but also the investigations. In terms of cyber intelligence and digital forensics, we've got rise of cyber threats, the way that I said in the beginning, your report really points out the same. In terms of technology aids, we are now fully capable in identifying, tracking, and mitigating cyber risks. And we've been working towards it because all of us, whether we like it or not, leave a digital footprint, whether it is through social media, whether it is through the laptops, the phones. We all know how our phones are listening. The digital forensics has really transformed for investigators, where now we can retrieve from where it was punching in data and to pull out, let's say, if there is a catchword that was given, to now machine doing all of it for us, and again, helps us in the long way. Last but not the least, you've already exhibited the open source intelligence, the OSINT, or the real-time collaboration tools that all of us work towards, and it's really helped us. Last point from my side on this, while everything is hunky-dory, it's something that I always, because by the end of the day, all of us also have, I think Ashish sir spoke about putting the rail guard around it. So as the technology evolves, the concern about privacy rights and ethical implications are always there. So we as consultants, whether MitKat, yourself, and the good team that you have, or my team, and from our end, we always need to need to get into debates like this, where we can work around, we can develop policies so that when the technology is evolving, we are not left behind. It also requires constant adaptation to address the ethical and privacy challenges that accompany the technological advancement, is what I want to say. Back to you, Pawan sir.
I think great insight, Shantu, and I like the aspect which you said of collaboration. I think it's gone is the era of competing with each other or hiding data from each other as security professionals. The more we collaborate and more because the enemy is very different. We are not competing with each other. We are competing against something very different, which don't even know the shape and the form. So we are all in it together. The more we collaborate in these kind of forums and others, I think the more we learn from each other, because nobody is an expert. And I'm not saying Adhiraj, you are not in, but I think here we are all in the same boat. I think thanks back to Adhiraj on this thing is there. What all we talking about is if we need to do a transformation, it needs an ecosystem. And that's the moat of any industry has transformed on the back of an ecosystem where industry, government, regulations, startups, everything has to evolve and evolve in the same direction and alignment. What is your view on the, especially if I just constrain it to more physical security domain per se, on the technology trends which all the professionals have alluded to? What's your sense on how we are transforming the whole thing? And do you see a ecosystem change which is happening? And if not, then what is your idea? What needs to be done more on this?
Thanks, Pawan. I hope you can hear me all right.
Yes. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for the question. Really interesting to hear views from the fellow panelists. And I mean, I remember the last physical security panel I was on about 5-6 years ago. Similar themes were being discussed, but most of the people were talking about very, very nascent technologies at that point. So it's a refreshing change to see people speaking so natively about emerging technologies. I think it means that the ecosystem's ready for adopting new tech and creating that ecosystem, like you said. Just to give you a quick snapshot of the last decade. So I come from a venture capital background. I've been investing in startups and building that ecosystem for the past decade or so. Just to give you a lens on the decade in India, there's been so I was just looking up, and Pawan, you know me and my love for numbers. There's about a 38,000% growth in the number of startups that have been registered in the last decade, right? So that's a massive boost to India, which has then boosted us to the third largest startup ecosystem in the world. And very encouragingly, 50% of all the C-suites of startups are women founders, which is the only, I mean, that number of diversification is the highest globally. So I think the Indian startup story has been a great one, both from the numbers perspective, and also, I mean, we've grown. From a decade ago, we had about 8 unicorns. Now we're at about 118, 120, depending on who you ask the question to, right? In 2015, the amount of capital that's been raised for startups in India, that is venture capital funds and family offices, stands at around 15 billion. 12 billion of that is ready and available for startups. 60% of all those funds are available to early stage startups. So innovations in new fields, new spaces, not just follow on investments for consumer tech or logistics tech or stuff that's already been existing. 30% of all new venture capital funds that have been established have a focus on deep tech and agri tech and logistics services, which indicates that if you want to follow innovation, follow money. So it indicates that the building blocks of the last decade's been a hard one for the venture capital space, because there's been a lot of investment from our side. And, a lot of people keep asking us the question about where's the business model? All these are cash burn models, right? Even I'm running a profitable business, but what are these guys coming and burning money? Look at their P&Ls, they're negative, negative millions. And that's always been a hard space for the venture capital space to explain to people that when venture capital money goes in, it's towards investing, towards creating the building blocks of the nation. Right? Your first burn is to get people used to using technology in a certain manner, or get used to adopting technology in a certain manner. And then when the ecosystem is ready, then all bolt-ons and adoption of technology happen at a velocity that's unseen before. So my short answer to everybody who asks the questions about burn models is we're not investing for quick profit. We're investing for the long game, and we're looking to build the ecosystem around products and platforms that will create sustainable profit in the long future. Pawan, you also asked me about my take on technologies and innovation in the last few years. So quickly, my focus areas would be obviously foundational AI. There are lots of foundries that are coming out of various places of the world. So normally, when you think of a foundry, you think of a iron and steel mill. Young guys have gone into creating AI foundries, which is creating foundational models for creating further AI. That's becoming a big theme of focus, which will be transformational in the next decade. Sumit sir, I think, very clearly said AI native tooling is a new theme. Very interestingly, if you go to any startup summit, most of the people will talk about email and ERP as being primitive technologies now. They say that email and ERP and all is primitive, it's outdated. We don't need to talk about it because everybody is now moving towards AI native tooling. And obviously, the next few trends that as investors we're looking at is creation of synthetic data, simulations, applied robotics, and automation. I'm on the fence, and I think the entire ecosystem is on the fence. You had asked me what's hype. I wouldn't want to talk about hype per se, but if you look at, I think you used a really interesting word saying moat. So if you look at the moat, three key spaces, moat could either be R&D or your differentiation. So where we're on the fence is spatial computing, because VR AR has been a big play in terms of, a lot of people, every fifth pitch that comes has an AR or a VR angle, but what the actual practical usability of it or the monetization is really hard to figure. Quantum computing is another one that we're on the fence of because of the long R&D cycles, and because it's so capital intensive. Unless you're an IBM or a Microsoft or very, very large deep pockets with very long gestation capital, it's really hard to create a commercially viable quantum computing system. And obviously, Web3 is another one that falls into the same bucket. The other ones that we wouldn't possibly look at and are, these X as a service. So bank as a service, toilet as a service, whatever as a service. Um, uh, with using tech as just a wrapper to enable the business model so that they get a valuation of a technology company is something that we need to be very cognizant of, because tech in X as a service is the smallest part of that business. It's just an enabler. It's not the business in itself. So that is something that doesn't have a very strong moat. And I see a lot of businesses going in that direction of repackaging their business as X as a service, keeping a very thin layer of technology on top. And obviously, incremental change or wrapper technologies. There's been a lot of people who put a wrapper on top of AI and say this is a great product. That is something that we're highly skeptical about. I'll answer the ecosystem question probably in the second question that you.
Thanks, Adiraj. Great insights as usual, and I think it's sinking now. We are not seeing a disparity in the way investment banker or a security professional from both the sides are thinking those. So I am seeing a sort of a unison in terms of the thoughts are happening, because 5 years back, every security panel discussion used to start with guns, gates, and guard. I'm so fortunate that we have not even spoken about that in this webinar across since 10 o'clock, I think. So it's itself is a great evolution. Just coming on to round two, which we'll do slightly quickly, which is there coming to Sumit. Some very, very learned person told me that companies like Capgemini and others have invested more than $1 billion itself in AI adoption and transformation. So it puts a lot of pressure on the security teams and risk managers, I guess, not to be risk averse, hindrance to the growth, but to be more as a force multiplier. So if you see risk managers like yourself and others as force multipliers in this domain of adoption of technology, what do we need to do differently than what we are very, very comfortable for decades doing? You're on mute. Sumit, you're on mute.
Am I audible now? Pawan sir, thanks for asking this question. And I think I'm very happy to announce that Capgemini in 2024, 2025, we invested close to 1.5 billion globally on upscaling.
That you are that learned person, you accepted that. So yeah.
On AI. So in 2026, I see more successful security leaders are transitioning from, say, the chief security officer's role to a value protection officer's role. And to ensure technology adoption drives growth rather than, it's adding to the risks. The strategy is shifting from, say, a kind of a gatekeeper model, as you rightly said, to an integrated security by design framework model. At CSO to board level, the conversation must now shift from, say, bits and bytes to capital allocation, because that's becoming very important, which was brought out by other panelists also. Market trust and operational continuity. 2026 strategic roadmap is about security as a growth engine. It is no longer a cost center. That is a mindset change which we all have to get used to. It is a trust product. It is not gatekeeping anymore. By shifting from a reactive defense to an autonomous resilience, we enable the business to adopt agentic AI, enter volatile markets, and utilize global data ecosystems with a speed that other competitors cannot. So I think, it's a combination of both cyber and the physical world, because the markets where the businesses are unstable. And You as security professionals have to enable that, and that's where your ask for investment to the board really comes from. Hence, I would recommend, like a typical 4G, whenever we get into a crisis mode, we divide the problem into phases. So the phase one for security leaders in 2026, in my opinion, should be the phase of foundation and governance, which I think Ashish sir also touched on. I think the first focus should be the foundation and governance. That's what I say, where your goal is to align security governance with the 2026 technology trends and the regulatory landscape. I think that is where there was the emphasis from Ashish sir, not only at a national level, but internationally also, because the startup ecosystem has to serve the international market. Focus on ISO 22342 standards, NIS 2, SEC, and so many global AI acts. So you have so many of them now, so you know how to adopt to all of them. Then active governance will involve risk and compliance transition. So AI augmented compliance implementation, what we call as an active GRC, right? That is real time. And you have to prove it to your board what will be the reduction in the risk in terms of percentage of the risks. And it's a good time to prove that, because 2025 has had a lot of risk incidents. So now 2026 looks like a good time to really prove you already have a good base on which you can say, oh, 40% reduction. I'm just putting a number, but don't go with that number I'm putting. And then obviously AI literacy on top. All this is a part of phase one of your operation. And asset data mapping. And I'm coming back to the quantum vulnerability audit here. So I understand quantum is not important, but identify high value IP that requires immediate migration to a post quantum cryptography model very soon, and start protecting it. And then let's go to phase two. Phase two is around operational enablement, which is where your prime goal should be remove the friction from business processes while hardening the identity parameter. Because in an AI native world, insider threat seems to be one major threat which is sitting with all of us. So frictionless authentication, deploy behavioral biometrics, which we talked about earlier, pattern of life checks, so on and so forth. That, of course, is a part of our background verification process, which you need to do. And create secure AI playgrounds where you can launch internal sandboxed LLM models and environments where your security professionals can fail safely, so that they build something which is very, very strong. So that it again becomes a very important one. And for CISOs, obviously shadow AI is also a threat which emerges with it. So as a CISO, Pawan, especially, I know you focus a lot on that. We have to be very clear that there's no shadow, like the erstwhile shadow IT organization or shadow AI organization also coming up. Similarly, make sure your supply chain visibility is complete, so that you have a continuous vendor monitoring tool in place. And phase three, which probably most of us will achieve somewhere in quarter 3 or quarter 4 sometime, is where you should aim at autonomous resilience. And it can even go into 2027 as a plan, where your goal should be to build a self-healing security enterprise. Right. When I say self-healing security enterprise, I'm very conscious of what I'm saying. Even in your physical security access control management, you have to move from things which look like too intrusive and which are hindering me to covert methods where multiple authentication factors are used for who's coming into your facilities as well. So autonomous red teaming, confidential computing integration, these are the key performance indicators which you should really target for the boards. I'm just thinking, see, why can't we have this, that shadow AI usage has to be brought down by 5%? These are the kind of metrics we should focus on.
Absolutely. I think two takeaways surely I'm taking from quick healing systems or self-healing systems and quantum literacy. I think maybe we'll do a session separately on this. I think this needs to be really populated down the level to all our security professionals. These are really, really great takeaways, I think. So thanks a lot for bringing this and emphasizing on this in both the discussions which you did. Just to take discussions to Ashish, lot of big words and a lot of things have been spoken about at a very board level, more at a strategic level kind of thing. But there are a lot of young professionals. I think almost there are 300 people still listening to this after 3 hours also, and a lot of the people on the live LinkedIn. So for young professional, the person who is sitting in GSOC or the site security managers, these still are big jargons. These still are big things. What are the ground level visible changes do you see in the way we are adopting security being transformed into a very, very different thoughts on that, please?
Manoj, I can hear you, but there's some disturbance in the
Yeah, yeah.
background. Is it all right now?
Kunal, can you mute Manoj, please? Yes. Sorry about this. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. I think the first and foremost is future readying our security resources. AI literacy, AI upskilling is 100% must. We can think of all the programs that we need to create to be future ready, but if our resources are not up to it and become what I would call AI natives, we will not go anywhere. And this has to happen in the next 1 year is what I'm looking at. 1 year is also too late, actually speaking. In my organization, like in the panel earlier, I heard that the amount of effort, energy that the organization is putting into AI literacy is amazing. We are being encouraged to use AI tools of every kind, experiment with them, use them, uh, experiment with them, and fail fast if we have to. Now, each day, and we keep talking about this in our security and safety teams, and the question I ask whenever I'm interacting with everybody is, and I ask myself that every evening is, what did I use in terms of AI today to do my day to day? If I'm not naturally gravitating towards thinking in that manner, there is something fundamental wrong, and I'll not be able to achieve the target of literacy that we have kind of put forth for ourselves as an organization. My thought right now, and I'm looking at the clock. We kind of pushing on time now, so I will pause here and say that the biggest uh, game changer for safety and security professionals would be to very quickly become AI natives. And I'll pass that back to you.
Great insight. I think one of the key topic can we have maybe AI adoption program for physical security professionals? Maybe an idea. All of us required. I'm not saying nobody is an expert. All of us at every juncture of life will need that. Maybe if Shantanu is listening, that might be an opportunity for all of us. Will see something. What can be done? Thing. That brings me to Shantanu on this thing. Is there so much of transformation which we are looking, and now these are not words and talks. This is practical things which are happening on ground results. So we adopt so much of technology, and we see maybe AI-based investigation or AI-based risk assessments and autonomous systems and all those which has been spoken about, or human-based AI models and everything. Is it going to be, how are we going to measure the impact of that? So impact more or saying ultimate is that, are we able to do risk reduction? Otherwise, these are all jargons. Good to have, but if we are not going to ultimately get a ROI on adoption from both service provider as well as a user perspective. What's your view on how do we get that model of risk reduction? And may not have exact answer, but your thoughts on those things. Yeah.
Great, sir. And I think you're the
Yeah,
I'm sure I'll be one of the first ones to get enrolled. And Sumit can be one of the chief instructors with all the good words and jargons. So technology definitely has the potential to both reduce and shift risks. We've seen in the past years how there has been a paradigm shift, but it also depends on how it is applied and managed. Ashish sir gave very relevant examples about how it is being done, and you asked when the operation center how these young boys and girls, all these jargons, how is it relevant to them? So reduction of traditional risks we've seen. Why? Because of enhanced security. We've seen advancements in cybersecurity. We interact with a lot of CISOs. There is surveillance, there's data analytics, there's technology that significantly reduces risks, which is associated with physical security breaches for all of us, for financial fraud, for banking. You and me, we interact with a lot of banking firms, and also unauthorized access, which leads to all of this. How does it help, or how does the technology? It's kind of the predictive capability that it brings in terms of analytics, in terms of machine learning, which allows us to better forecast potential threats. Again, going back to the same thing where one of the tools that you presented is something that, if used effectively, or let's get example, 6 months back, we had a situation where the CIA is now using these tools to predict and to see, and they've been doing it since Afghanistan days, where they were predicting as to when the IED is going to explode in which area, because they established a pattern over the years from the data that they have. Shifting our risk to new domains, we've all seen cybersecurity threats. Your report talks about it. There is data breaches, hacking. Every day we see these data. All our data is being leaked. There is privacy concern with obviously data protect the DPR in Europe and the rest of the world outside of India. With DP coming in, there's a lot of privacy concerns, whether it is digital yatra or anything that we use on a day-to-day basis, how it is collected, how the analysis for these large amounts of data, it definitely raises a lot of privacy issues. Then there is dependency risk. Are we so reliant? Have we given the keys to our lockers to the technology so that by the end of the day, it should not create vulnerabilities because our systems will fail? Third one is emergence of invisible or unanticipated risks, whether it is cyber. All of this leads due to complexity and interconnectivity. We've seen how the technology systems become more and more complex, but at the same time interconnected. It becomes it's very difficult for a physical security professional, as you very rightly said, till the time we don't have that AI know-how, it becomes very harder. Not difficult is not the word, but it becomes harder to predict potential failure points and security gaps that are there. And in the same breath, I would like to talk about ethical and regulatory challenges, because new technologies will often outspace existing regulations, and that is how we see that there are changes that the government or the regulatory authorities keep doing it. So we've got to create a landscape where legal and ethical risks may not be immediately evident. My bottom line, 4 key bottom line, and more of a consultant's bottom line, is technology reduces visible routine risk. We all agree that is the case, but it also shifts. The second one is also shifts the strategic and systematic risk into less visible domains. So we've got to cover ourselves, fly in a way that we have an eye on the ground. I think OP said we are all discussing 20,000 feet, but always have feet on the ground and understand what is going around. Poorly governed tech increases fragility. We've always spoken about insider threat. If we don't have our tech in terms of the governing mechanism in place, the tech will always increase fragility. Last but not the least, well-governed tech increases resilience. So we've got a tech that is well-governed. We've got data that will help you to predict, as I said in the beginning, and then by the end of the day, it definitely increases resilience. So that's my take on it, Pawan sir. Back to you.
Great summarizing, I think. Amazing points, Shantanu, as always. Just bringing on the last few minutes on the panel, Adhiraj, an important point. Sorry to be the dampener guy. You said 38,000 startups have started, but I just read one of the reports today morning, 9,426 have shut down out of that. Right. So where is the problem? It's a great space. It's a great thing, and let's focus more on physical security space just to get because it's more relevant to the current audience. In other domains like technology, AI, pure deep tech, and other financial domains, we are seeing a lot of incubators, a lot of labs, and which is there. What's your idea, and when do we see a unicorn coming out in physical security domain, and what needs to be done for that?
Great question, Pawan. You've changed the question you were supposed to ask me, but I'm going to answer this anyway. Well, I'm going to answer it anyway. So I think so. How we just taking a page out of what we had done earlier, right? In our fund, we went out, and the first phase. I mean, if 10 years ago, if you came out of a good institution, most people would say take a job, right? No, I mean, we comes from a middle class family. Nobody wants their kid to do well, and I know Pawan, your son also went to IIT Goa. You'd want him to do a job first and get that comfortable paycheck, right? As you grow in academically, I think your risk tolerance also kind of dips because you feel like you need to, there's an ROI, there's student loans, there's all sorts of pressure on you to be able to become an entrepreneur at the end of the day. Right now, you that's the first thing. A lot of people don't want to get out of their job and getting a regulated paycheck with golden handcuffs. Nobody wants to leave, to take that risk other than maybe a very few people. Um, Now you compound that with people learn by observing, right? So you compound that with the problem of what are the business models that are working well in the world, right? So everybody looking at consumer tech, everybody looking at mobility, everybody looking at simple technology solutions. They'll chase the trends. Everybody reads trends, so they'll chase the trends, right? So in this space there hasn't been a trend setter yet, right? I mean, I can name on my fingertips the number of physical security startups that have come out. And my first name that always comes to my mind is MitKat, because I've been tracking you guys for about a decade now. But MitKat's the only one that I mean, there are a few, but far between. The challenge is even when we started, so back to our fund, when we started, we first thought, how do you get people to jump out of that idea of wanting to take a job? And that's your first fundamental problem in India, right? How do you get them to stop taking a job and start looking at creating jobs instead? So the first thing that we had to do was we started creating incubators across the universities, just to get student entrepreneurs a sandbox to play with, and to get them a little bit of grants and get them a little bit of funding, because creating a fund without a deal flow is counterintuitive. So I had to get people into that habit of doing that. We created a pool of mentors that people could reach out to, people who have done successful businesses, who people could rely on, and then finally went to the funding stage, scale up, getting good business models, and so on. Right now, if you look at the physical security space, the fundamental first two business building blocks are missing. Name one physical security incubator, Pawan. There isn't a focus, and I've been asking this question for a while.
You don't ask me the same question.
I can, because you changed your question. So, so there is no physical security. So at the base level, right? And you were kind enough. I think Sam took me to a couple of universities that focus on physical security education, NFSU and RRU. But I was surprised that there wasn't an entrepreneurial focus there also. There also they were skilling them so that they could be able to, they could take jobs up, right? So at the first level, fundamental problem, one, do people who come out of the armed forces or who go into colleges to study physical security or geopolitics, how do we encourage them to look at this space as an attractive space, right? Because people don't look at this space as an attractive space. Defense, homeland security seem very, very far off because of pay cycles are very opaque for people to understand this as a space. And even though I've tracked a couple of startups that came into this space, really hard for them to get POCs, and because large companies want them to go through that whole cycle of, we will do a vendor due diligence and cyber and all that sort. So these young guys who would otherwise do very well in other businesses, they go through a X-ray before they're even ready to build a body, right? So the first level of that building block of creating an ecosystem for encouraging people to understand how to do a business in this space is level one. Level two is create ecosystem enablers that are incubators, accelerators, and all people here, right, on this panel, people who are working in large companies. Can you come with problem statements that are simple, that can be solved by young entrepreneurs, that can be monetized, not just vaguely saying that we need camera analytics, but what is the use case and where is the route of monetization? If people who are professionals in this space can actually hold hands and say, yes, this is a thing we want to solve, these are the clear-cut problem statements, and I've heard a lot of gems in this panel. Put those problem statements out there and attach them to create probably a ecosystem or an incubator or an accelerator to get those student entrepreneurs to actually become real life entrepreneurs, right? Or ex-defense people who are the best to be able to tackle this new nuance or the new age threat. Can we create that pipeline systematically so that we can encourage people to start looking at this industry attractively, create an incubator where people can experiment safely with where they can also get funding or get some grants. And then the industry, if you need to encourage people to come in instead of taking products from outside, if we can look at startups from within that building block and encourage them to solve problems that you have, I think that would solve the problem where we're not creating where we'll be able to actually solve that issue of no security or unicorns. Hopefully, our next decade we'll have about 118 unicorns coming out of security, but you never know.
Hopefully for the next generation entrepreneurs, I think this will be a great I think great insights, Adiraj, and just very, very excited with the point which you have said. And on behalf of MitKat, not discussed with internally, but I'll sure put up my hand up as the co-founder. We will surely come up with the incubator and a labs where we can actually do. I don't know the some mechanics of that, but you've excited us enough to look at this space, and definitely we'll do something in next Mars. Maybe we will not be talking about this thing, we'll be seeing the traction of this thing, hopefully, if that happens. Thanks for this really, really great insights on this. Just to sorry, I was given 15 minutes. I have taken Sandeep's 5 minutes. Sorry for that. But I'll hand it over back to Ankita. Great. I cannot summarize this discussion because I think I'll need another 15 minutes to summarize. There was so much of insights in. So I'm so taking it back to Ankita. Thanks a lot, everyone, for spending time and giving great insights on this. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much for having us. Thank you.
Ankita, all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Desai, and thank you to the panelists. A great final session of the day and a fantastic conclusion to the day. The pioneers of the industry have truly left us with a lot to reflect upon. And as we approach the end of this event, I would like to invite Sandeep Sinha, Executive Director, Risk Consulting and Managed Services at MitKat, to please sum up and provide us with the concluding thoughts. Over to you, Mr. Sinha.
And one particular panel on technology. And if Ankita feels that the onus of doing that is mine, let me do my best attempt. I would like to first and foremost thank each one of you who have, the panelists, who have taken valuable time from their work to grace us with their presence, their knowledge, and their insights. I would also like to thank each one of our attendees. And I think we have crossed 500 at one point of time, for doing the same and for taking the interest and opportunity in learning from the industry stalwarts. This has been a brilliant session, and a lot of learnings and insights have come out. And right from the start, when General Sharma, he gave a very strategic overview of the global scenario, the regional scenario, and quickly its implications on India. Two or three things stand out. His thoughts were, to quite an extent, echoed by Bruce McIndoe. There is going to be an increased shift from rule-based to force-based order. India continues to see a bright spot in terms of sustained growth, but with heightened and manageable uncertainty. So we are probably already in an age which is not marked by direct competition or direct cooperation, but somewhere in between of strategic cooperation. So General Sharma's and Bruce's, overviews gave us a framework within which India shall do business and thrive. The second set of speakers were equally interesting, where they took these guidelines and cues and elaborated a lot on how organizations are actually addressing these scenarios. So in Colonel Pradhan's moderated panel, two or three things stood out and are very, very relevant. One, external risk will continue to be very, very important. At a more granular level, travel safety, duty of care, and our responsibility towards our employees and stakeholders are going to be very, very important. For that, visibility is going to be very necessary, which will be enabled by technology. Also, we are in a time when there is increasing regulation across the world, and there is also increasing regulatory scrutiny. And security is one of the functions of business where the amount of data that gets generated, and especially so data that can be argued to be private, is only increasing. And therefore, it becomes very, very important to set up not only capabilities to analyze that data, get insights from it, but also to create the guardrails of robust governance around these. Because the penalties that are now going to be associated with breaches or non-compliance are going to be, of the tune that have never been imagined before, especially for the physical security industry. So, at a more granular level, the second panel also kind of agreed that the transition of physical security has moved from silo-based to integrated and now to unified framework of working. And also security across organizations is moving from, has already rather moved from reactive to proactive to predictive. And a lot of speakers stressed on case studies and use cases where this prediction aspect is being used. We also got the opportunity to witness the unveiling of the India Risk Review by my colleague Atreya, followed by a brief on the upgraded data surfer by my colleague Abhijit Kode. And at times, our tech team is making changes and upgrades so fast that even we find it difficult to keep track of. But all said and done, it is very important that the security fraternity, take specific demonstrations of the new data surfer, because data surfer predict, as you saw, has got certain additional functionalities which are purely designed by security professionals for security professionals, with the aim of security professionals providing greater insights and recommendations to their boards. Ian Findlay also reminded us that it is going to be increasingly important that the recommendations made by security professionals need to be addressed to boards with a view to explain how our actions are going to be positively impacting share prices and our profits. Towards the end, we moved to of a panel moderated by Pawan Desai, who is one of the foremost proponents of technology and AI in physical security, and as confirmed by Adhiraj, who comes from the PE and VC background, that the fact that he has been tracking MitKat and Pawan especially proves my point. So this particular panel discussion on technology was a very forward-looking one. It talked of how adoption is happening in physical AI and cybersecurity. What was very, very heartening for the industry is, the brief given by Adhiraj to where the opportunities to develop unicorns in physical security could be, and what the mindset of a private equity player or a venture capitalist is. And I think for budding entrepreneurs within this set of attendees, this is going to be a very, very important cue. What also comes out is that large companies, especially, and now I'm taking a cue from what Sumit Sharma and Colonel Ashish Nangia were alluding to, there are going to be significant investments within enterprises to adopt AI in a responsible and a controlled manner, and within the physical security domain also what all we need to do. So few points that stood out. I'm just shamelessly quoting Ashish Nangia sir. It is important to have AI plus HI, human intelligence, which I think is a very, very apt way of telling us that one, jobs may not necessarily go. Two, we better shape up and become AI natives so that the combination of AI and HI can be a very, very impactful one in securing our businesses. A lot of who also reiterated the importance of using data. AI will be one of the tools which will enable us to use data better, faster, in a more responsive manner, with deeper insights and higher accuracy. The good part was that he's told us with all levels of security AI is being used or can be used, at an equipment level or at an awareness level or at the cyber forensics level. So it is going to be valid everywhere. So all in all, I think this entire session has been a very, very insightful one. We have heard the views and benefited from the knowledge that has been shared by leaders across industry. The future, that is, years 2026 and 2027, because that was the time frame also mentioned at one point of time by Sumit, and he went up to 2028. For the security industry, looks challenging and bright. And as Bruce said, that there will be fragmentation but manageable disruption. And we have no choice now to use every single tool to help us direct our focus in the right direction and for the right things, as told to us by Ajay. So with that, I will take this opportunity to wish you a great year 2026. I will wish you the best of health, success, and prosperity in this time. And thank you once again for being part of this event, which is very, very close to our hearts and of great utility to the industry. And with that, I will hand the mantle back to Ankita. Back to you, Ankita.
Thank you, Mr. Sinha, and thank you all for your outstanding participation and engagement at MitKat's first event of the year 2026. If any of your questions went unanswered, I apologize, and I encourage you to directly connect with our esteemed panelists to delve deeper into their perspectives. Before we part, I'm thrilled to share that APAC Mars 2026 is scheduled for 22nd January this year. Save the date and we eagerly anticipate your presence at the upcoming event as well. Please follow us on LinkedIn and other social media channels to stay updated. Thank you very much and have a great day ahead.